I can't tell you how many times I've been scrolling through Instagram or any social media, Facebook, whatever, and there's a person up there trying to tell their story. And I realize this is important right now. And then I realized I have amazing resources and friends. So I got together with Alley Matt Inc. And that's Allison Macondray and Matt Clark. I've known them for 6-7 years, and they help people put together TED Talks and keynote presentations. They've worked with some of the best in the world. And we just started having a conversation about their process of whittling down the essence of your story. And not only that, but turning it into more of a gift, bringing it from the head into the heart. I love this conversation. It was only supposed to be probably, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour. We ended up going for about 3 hours. If you like this work, please share it. Give me a follow. Follow me on YouTube. Go to totalbswellness.com and join the Platinum Club. It's free. I'm putting tons of free stuff up there for you guys as well. Tell your friends about this work. And yeah, let's enjoy this. It's totalbswellness.com because, you know, if you don't show up and seek it and practice it, all this is BS anyway. So I hope you enjoy this talk. Let's get started.
It's like what you told me about your dad when you were taking care of him, is that the best thing to do is to let them know that you're good, that you're taken care of, and so they don't, because they're the caretaker.
Yeah.
And if they're sick and they have to worry about you worrying, that's more burden for them. You know?
Yeah, it's exhausting, and there's a lot of people that have. You know, someone's asked me the other day. They're like, you know, do you ever get help from people? And I'm like, I will totally let people help me. But if I watch you struggling in the kitchen, I'm not going to let you cook for me. You know, it's like I don't I don't need that, and I think that's important for us to, like, that's how I'm always saying, give what you own. And I don't think we take enough time to really see what we own, because we just want to help somebody. Like, so many people right now are thinking, like, I just want to help, I just want to help, I just want to be of service. But you know, what are you going to help? What are you going to do? You know, so I think that's important.
You mean like I'm going to give them peace of mind, but if I'm not feeling peace of mind, we'll work on that first.
Yeah.
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 I mean,
Go ahead.
think about how so many people want to feel important right now because they're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. But then when you tell them, like, to really just stay inside for a little while, and they're like, but that's not good enough. That's not what I wanted to do. It's kind of like if you don't know how to work on a car and you go over to your friend and he owns a garage, and you go in there and you're like, I just want to help out Bob. And then you go there and he just be like, look, the best thing you can do right now is just kind of stand back because we're about, and you're like, no, I wanted to hold it, you know, like, no, I wanted to just be there covered in grease. It's like, you're not ready yet. And so I think we need to just take an inventory of our skill set and be okay with the fact that it's the Goonies. When it's time to play the piano, jump in and play the piano. And then when it's time to read the Spanish map, hopefully we find the person that knows Spanish. But for now, the Spanish person doesn't need to jump on the piano and help, because you're just going to, you know, I don't know if y'all remember that scene, but every time they hit a wrong note, the floor falls out and they're going to die. So don't let Spanish guy impose his desires to be useful in that moment. You know what I mean?
I'm going to ruin my nerd cred right now. I have not seen the Goonies.
What?
I know. Shocking. It was weird. I don't know how old I was when it came out, but I somehow missed it.
Whoa, that's crazy.
No, I know. I'm not nice.
Well, I've also been propositioned by a lot of people to help them get their streaming and stuff working. And,
oh shit! Because they think you know what you're doing.
yeah. And I tell them all the time, like, I mean, you and I have talked about this. I'm really good at being lost.
Yeah, yes.
And
I need to learn that better.
And if it makes people think I know more.
Yeah, right.
And they're like, you're good, and I'm like, no, I just don't have any opinion over not knowing.
Okay, so what's the secret? What's the secret to being good at being lost?
No expectations.
Mm-hmm.
You got to want to just be there. And
Yeah.
when that's happening, then you'll be able to, then you're not going to be so uptight. You know what I mean?
But what happens when you just want to fucking accomplish something?
Get over it.
Huh? Get over it.
That's the magic, because so many people walk into things with expectations and they're not there to feel. And I mean, it's fitness. This is what I'm telling you. It's like when someone walks into a fitness class, they're like, look, summer's coming or my wedding's in 6 weeks. I got to get in shape. And then that's where you're going to blow your knee out. But if you just go in and just say, like, I want to do this thing, and then enjoy it and enjoy the process, because our expectations are the key to our own letdown. Our expectations are the reason why we're in this fucking mess now. Is, you know, the reason why we don't listen to nature is because we got shit to do. Like, you know what I mean? Like everybody wants to save the world, but if it just isn't delivered, like, yeah, you know what? I'll do it. It's and the levels of grief. One of my favorite things that's happening right now is when we first quarantined, everyone was like, doom and gloom, run for toilet paper, punch the old lady. And then we went into, oh my God, we're all going to die. We don't have enough resources. And then we go into, who are we going to blame, right? Create our own personal hell. Who are we blaming? Who are we blaming for this? The government? The government's in charge of viruses. And then, and now we're at this place of, now we're trying to bargain with nature, right? And so now we're bargaining. And it's the same person as, like, they want to lose weight. They go in and then they're like, "Hey man, you gotta stop eating. You gotta stop drinking, right?" And they'll be like, "But I gotta stop drinking." And then they're like, "Yeah." And then they go through like 2 days of drinking. They come back and they're like, "Yeah, but I got friends in town this weekend." And now they're bargaining with nature. And you're like, "Look, you either want to or you don't. You can bargain all you want, but when the ground starts shaking, it shakes everybody's house. It doesn't let you know, yeah, but I always like to put my cup right up here above my computer, and like, could you mind not shaking my, it's like, nature doesn't give a shit about you." And now we're in a place where, as a culture, we're trying to bargain with nature.
Yep.
And that's like, we're here as stewards. And one of my favorite poems, it says, remember you're a visitor here. You're a guest.
Right. Yeah, I think that's Rumi. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very important to know that.
Right. Yeah.
So, all right, what have you guys been keeping busy with? Who are you? Introduce yourselves.
I am Matt Clark, and I am a student of Matt Lucas. God, how long? When did I meet you? 7 years ago?
Yeah,
was it
something like that?
Maybe? Something like that.
You were a
almost at 10 years.
Man.
I'll know Kung Fu in 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Damn you, Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So I got introduced to Matt 7 years ago. Changed my life. I've never been a person who liked exercise, or I used to get mad in yoga class because I couldn't freaking do it. I would literally get mad in yoga class.
Standing there looking some chick in a bikini ruling you, and you're like, I just want to just.
No, I'd go with her, and she's a great yogi, and
you would pound the floor,
and everybody would be like doing their thing and stretching, and I could not get even close to any of that shit because I'd never been. I'm not an exercise person, and so I'd get mad. So I meet you. First thing you do is teach me how to do a push-up. I remember that vividly. I came home. I think I cried.
You did for half an hour.
I cried because I'm like,
I found my teacher.
It's like, you're perfect. You're so perfect for me because it's like no expectations. You're goofball. You're funny. Play weird music. It's like, it's not serious. You know, it's not. There's no ambition, as you like to say there. And so I really appreciate that. And I just love. I love the crew that you created, and the people we all practice with. It's great. So that's my relationship with you. My relationship with her is we met, what was it like? How long ago now?
17 years.
17 years?
Got that.
Anyway, we met, and she was a general manager of Wired.com, Wired News.
Wired News.
And I think it was freelance graphic designer. I'd worked at a couple companies before that, but I've been freelance for a long time. And we, soon after we met, she quit her job and she started freelancing as an editor, and I was freelancing as a designer. And we started just helping each other out. I'm a little bit of a writer as well, but she's a really great editor. So when I had writing stuff to do with, I was working for like a winery, I'd have her help with that. And then she would do projects where there might be graphic design or a little creative writing, which is more my thing. And we'd help each other out. And then we started just actually doing client work together. So now what we do for the last 10 years or so, is it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. We decided we wanted to specialize in presentations. So anytime somebody's going to get up in front of an audience and tell their story, if you're going to do a TED Talk or a conference keynote, we started helping people create that content, create those stories. So we'll help writing with scripts, and we'll do the graphic design, the slide design, kind of figure out if you don't know what you want to say, well, we can start from scratch.
Yeah.
Some of our clients are they're really good writers and they're pretty well known already, but we still help them with structure and feedback, because even if you're a super high level pro, it's really good to have, a creative team to bounce things off of. So that's what we do.
Sure.
What's up with you, Allison?
I think our turning point was working for Jim Stengel, working for the global market. A creative firm said, "Hey, this former global marketing officer, Procter & Gamble, has a book coming out, and he's going to do a tour. You want to help him create a presentation?" And we did, and we realized we really loved the art of like working with individual influencers, thought leaders, and the live presentation for a couple reasons. Like it's kind of a two-dimensional craft in that it's like a script and a slide deck as opposed to a website, which has crazy bells and whistles.
Yeah.
It's a chance for, each slide is a visual communication composition. And I personally really like the alchemy of working with an individual, of it's not just what they know, but it's who they are, what their unique point of view is, what their emotional turning points were. And then there's the alchemy of a live audience, whether it's like a pitch to 2 people or a TED presentation to 2,000. It's like, you have to communicate, and how are you going to, such that at the end of that 18 minutes, the audience has shifted their point of view about something, or they've kind of grasped your idea, but made it true for themselves. Either, wow, I had no idea that was true. I, hadn't thought about it that way. I'm going to start talking about that. Or it might be that I want to hire this person or work with them. Or, if you're talking about cultural change, I always thought old age was about this, but really it's about this. So it's that chance of kind of doing our part. It's the TED thing of ideas worth spreading. But each person's going to make it different for themselves.
You guys work on people, put together projects, TED Talks, and even like any like keynote or anything like that. But we were talking, okay, you guys are poised right now to take over the world. I don't know. I don't know if you know that. I don't know if you know that, but it's just,
right.
Because everyone right now is wanting to tell their story. They're sitting around. It's the message in a bottle song, but our bottle now is our living room and our, and our messages through internet. So you guys help people tell that story. And you said something. You said what you think is blank, or what are those 2 questions that you always ask?
Well, there's one thing a previous coach explained it. I don't know where he or she, Jennifer and Brian, got it, but they call it the clear story, which is really you. And a talk really is, you might think, but really,
if
you just, then you will.
Right.
So you might think this is true, but really this is true.
Right.
And then once you've got that flip, then you as the thought leader, or if you just do this, then this will happen.
Then you're going to result. Yeah. And it's usually counterintuitive. I mean, those are the best kinds of clear stories.
Right.
You know, the one you think, if you think this thing is true, actually the opposite is true. And here's what happens when you do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what, well, you and I went over that when you would talk about exercise, because a lot of people, you know, like I said, a lot of people would think that I was an athlete. And I was like, no, I'm really into communicating this because I'm not an athlete. I never dressed out in PE. I hated sports. I don't like moving my body.
You don't like moving your body?
Not really. No, I mean, I could sit down and write all day. I mean, now I'm getting into it. Not until I was like, I didn't learn a backflip until I was like 30. And then you know, this roller skating thing is really coming around. But I like the way moving my body makes me feel later. But I don't actually, I mean, it took a long time for me to get into it. I mean, every day it was just me kind of, you know, doing the Mac Clark sound. Time.
I know that sound.
Well, I love how, I mean, that's when we're practicing, you're always like, okay, this is not exercise.
Yeah, it's not exercise. And the other thing I was telling someone is, if you go into something thinking that it's going to be hard, or I learned a long time ago, tigers don't become tigers by going to tiger class, right? And so if you have to leave your natural state, like if you got to get pumped up, or if you got, that's why I just work out in whatever I'm wearing. Because if I have to leave myself, like my relaxed state, to become this thing, then that means I'm not it.
Right.
So instead of, if you don't call it exercise, what do you call what you do? Or do you not have a label?
Just practice. Just
practice.
Because if you treat it like exercise, you have this idea that it's going to give you something. And then you're there to learn something. I'm more into skill building, and we're learning how to integrate stress and practice into our lives. But most of the time when we think exercise, we think of this thing we have to do out of guilt or vanity, right? It's a chore. Like I do this because I want to look a certain way, or I have to because my heart's going to fail on me. And really it's the practice of cultivating yourself as a tool that does everything that you're going to do. And that's what martial arts is. It's, you are a vessel, and you are this vehicle, and you're living in the world, and you turn on every light switch, and you do everything that you do. And if it's not sharp and aware and doesn't respond to the stresses of your life with some sort of just awareness, then you become a crazy reactionary person, again, punching an old lady for toilet paper because someone sneezed next to you, right? And I think that's chicken shit at best, right? And so if you can go into it just being like, I'm just trying to discover something new about myself, that's it. Like, hey, this is how many push-ups I can do. Congratulations. You know,
one of my favorite ways that Matt has, I think you, in some of the times, because I'll make a cameo in your classes sometimes. And one of my, the way that you described this practice, or the result of this practice, it's always stuck with me. And actually we could talk about how it applies to live stage talks or live address, is how to respond to non-compliant environments.
Yeah. And that's the thing. This is why you guys are so important now, because everyone's trying to tell their story right now. People feel unheard because we developed an infrastructure around constant validation, right? Whether you do it to get the grade, or the high five it, or the ribbon, or the like, right? And you guys help people get to the real gist of it. And a room full of strangers is just as non-cooperative as, you know, I mean, because they can just decide, like, I like this person or I don't, and they can just tune out and start looking at their phone. So, all right, solve all of our problems. What do you guys do? Yeah, how do you guys integrate that release of stress, or walking into a non-cooperative environment?
So there's there's different forms. Like there's a TED Talk where literally you got it, or maybe now it used to be 18 minutes, and now most TEDx's are like 12 minutes. Okay. Maybe you'll have 8. Yeah. And that's actually really freaking hard. It's that old chestnut of, would have written you a shorter letter, but I didn't have the time. Yeah. It's really, and with TED Talks, you literally are boiling it down to commas and, what can we cut from that sentence. But I think one of the main ways that we help people is, sometimes I describe it like the spaghetti in your head. You have so many ideas, or you have this whole lifetime of work. How am I going to boil it down? And we can kind of help call, to that magic thesis sentence, and that 1 or 2 or 3 key stories in the right sequence.
Mm-hmm.
So we help people boil it down to have what I sometimes call the scaffolding of your story.
Yeah.
And the slide deck kind of helps with that ballast too, because the slides can help cue you. And we spend a lot of time. Sometimes it takes months to create a very short talk of back and forth and of us letting things percolate and coming back. Is that really true? Is that really the most vulnerable story? We really want to get to like the kind of essence of what people have to say. But I think where practice comes in, I've got training as a dancer and performer and classical pianist back in the day. And sometimes often people come and say, we work with this pretty well-known.
Hey, can we just pause? Because that was my mom. Let me just call her back. Okay.
Yeah.
We worked with this really well-known, and I can describe this again when we record, but a really well-known founder. And she just would get so nervous speaking. Sometimes she'd literally, on the way to speak, she'd have to go throw up. And said, well, what do you do to rehearse? And she's like, oh, I just kind of read it through in the cab, and just assume I'm going to wing it. And what we try to say is like actually practicing it again and again and again and again with different audiences doesn't make it. What you want to get is enough in your body and the essence in your body so that it feels natural. So like a ballerina, you practice the plies hundreds of times so that when you can dance, then you can add your own expression.
Well, that's preparation.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay, shall we talk about?
Continue.
Sorry, that was weird.
Okay.
So what we help people with is that ballast of really concentrating down. What do you have to say? How are you going to say it? What's the right essence of what you have to say? Mm-hmm. And then for me, practice comes in. I sometimes analogize as to being a ballet dancer or pianist. You want to practice the chords. You want to practice the plie, practice the steps, or rehearsing for a play again and again and again and again until you get to that kind of happy birthday level of knowing it. Yeah. So that you kind of have it enough so that you can dance on top of it. And there's so much non-compliant environments to a live address. You don't know what kind of mood you're going to be in. Are you going to remember that one word? What happens if you blank? What are your mindset practices before you get up there? And you have no control over what's the vibe of the audience going to be. Yeah. We talk with Chip, one of our really well-known founder we work with, who's given hundreds of talks, hundreds and hundreds over the last 2 decades. And he's really developed an art where he might think he's going to say something, and then he gets to the audience and it's a totally different vibe.
Yeah.
So, and you read it too. You might start with a joke and it kind of falls flat, and then you need to calibrate and bring them in.
Yeah. It's Chip Conley we're talking about. He's a real master of really being in the moment. And the thing you're always on about, which is about, so you were talking about like strategy versus being in the moment, and you can't plan for things like that.
Yeah.
You can't plan to be authentic, and resilience really means trusting yourself that whatever occurs, you're going to have the tools to manage it. And being grounded and aware in the moment, especially on stage in front of a bunch of people or on video in front of a bunch of people, that you can manage what's coming at you.
Yeah. Well, you guys mentioned vulnerability, and I don't think we've talked about this a lot, how people think vulnerability is all about just breaking down in tears all the time. But when you're on stage, you're vulnerable out of the gate. Like walking on stage, vulnerable. And then you want to practice hard enough, and you want to practice enough to where you can adapt to anything. And even when you fail, that's vulnerability. It takes vulnerability to be powerful. Like, you're a big guy, and that's the thing. Like, you have to put yourself out there to be as strong as you really are. And I don't think we appreciate people.
Yeah.
No, it's really hard, because your job is to be as small as possible, because it's pop is lowest common denominator, right? And then you go on stage, and if you fall, or if the joke falls flat or anything like that, reminds you you're vulnerable, and then it also allows, hopefully you've trained enough to be able to just kind of shuck and jive through it. But a lot of people, you know, we're just like, I'm just going to wing it. I'm just going to go out there and channel. And that proves that they've been in way too many cooperative environments, you know, because like we're just going to clap for you anyway, you know. But what if you do need to change people's minds? I have a question. Storytelling is hard, and you guys were mentioning it's actually not about, you want to be out there and tell your story, but it's actually not about you. Go. So when you're coaching someone, and we know it's not about them, but you are out there to tell your story, but you're there to tell your story from a selfless place. How do you guys help people with that?
Yeah, well, it's really about the audience. It's not about you as the protagonist. You are the guide. You are the one that is guiding the audience through a journey. And you may be telling your story, but it needs to be relevant to the people listening. It has to be something they can understand and empathize with.
Okay.
So, I mean, one of the first things we start out with is we spend a hefty part of the intake of focusing in on who they want to reach. You know, who are the demographics, you know, who's your ideal audience, and then also the psychographics. What do they believe? What are their fears? What's their, you might think, you know, what's their bias, and why should they care? Why should they care about what you have to say? And it's not going to be, it's not really not going to be anything about your resume or your credentials. It's going to be, there's a whole thing, we've got a whole thing around, you know, what do you say during the first 10 seconds, during the first few minutes? And a big mistake that people will often make is to think, oh, well, I'm going to get them to listen to me if I start out by saying, oh, I'm so happy to be here, and I've known the host for so long, and, you know, when I was at Stanford, and then the audience is falling asleep because it's not about you. So you want to make a lot of the first words out of your mouth, you know, how many of you might be thinking, you want them to realize, oh, this is relevant to me. And part of that, a big part of that, starts with cluing in on who they are. And then, you know, by the end of the talk, what do you want them to have decided for themselves? What do you want them to believe? And so everything is, you know, even around your own origin story is really not so much about credentials, but also letting them understand your emotional attachment and like what's your why to why you're up there. So it might be not so much where you went to school or how you developed the expertise, but what was a turning point in your life that led you on the path to where you are now? Why do you care so much about the audience getting, why do you care so much about what you want to share?
Yeah, and that brings me to sort of the opposite or a contrasting piece of it is that, number one, you want to make sure you're being relevant to your audience. But at the same time, TED Talks are so ubiquitous and everybody is sharing everything all the time. Everybody's written, you know, Medium and LinkedIn, everybody's writing their own essays about any pertinent subject that's going on. 1,000 people have written about it or talked about it. And just about every opinion has been expressed. And what we like to say is that, yeah, but it hasn't been expressed by you. So really understanding where you're coming from and what your personal point of view is what makes it unique. Even if it's been said by 100 other people, the way you say it, if you say it in a way that's really unique to you from your point of view, that makes it different. So.
Yeah, that was something that I struggled with when I got those people asking me to write a book. And I was like, I'm not going to be some white boy writing a book on martial arts when I could just write a book on books about martial arts. And then they're like, yeah, but you have this unique way of communicating it. And that was about 10 or 12 years ago. And now I'm just starting to realize, like, oh, yeah, I do have a unique way of, but I was so wrapped up in just doing it. I didn't realize. So yeah, you guys help people with that.
How do you analogize it to, I'm curious, with teaching, you know, when you have a class of students and this idea that it's not about you and all of your, you know, that you know, been studying since you were 3 and you know this and that, but that it's about the students. Like, is there a parallel analogy there?
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to just meet them where they're at, and I'm always, I just love sharing it. The thing that I learned as a teacher is you can only give what you own, and I own this, and the way that I started teaching was people just came around while I was practicing. And I would just be like, well, this is what I'm working on. And it's just like I was saying, I'm really good at being lost. So when people would come by, I would just be like, I don't know how to do this. And I've just been trying to get it forever. And I came up with these 5 things. And then I just started showing it. And then everyone just kept coming around being like, hey, what were those 5 things? What were those 5? And then next thing you know, so I was just doing it from a place of sharing and giving. And then I realized you can't buy this. It's Kung Fu means time and energy, and you can't buy skill at all. You never will. If anyone says they did, they're liars, and they're delusional. And so you can only show up and practice. And then I was just like, oh, yeah. The one thing I do own is the ability to show up and practice. So I just kept showing up and practicing, and people kept asking me what were the ways, since I don't have the expectation to be good, I just, you know, I'm just like one of those, it's good to be here, you know, kind of, you know, it's like I'm just glad that I can be in the room. And so I always stood in the back. I always just did my thing. When everyone was doing their awesome kick, I would be like, okay, that looks like it's like these 3 moves seamlessly put together. So I would just do those 3 moves one after another and just tapped into the essence of yoga, which is like breathing and sequencing. And then next thing you know, I have students.
Yeah. There's so many parallels between how we practice and what we do in terms of like breaking things down to their most component parts. Like, you know, the way we've been teaching the Persian form started out with the little pieces, even each part, breaking each part down into, you know, a couple little pieces that are doable. Yeah. And then even the, you know, the modifications, you know, do it on your knee or do it, you know, if your arm is injured, do it with the other arm, you know, things down. And I think getting to the essence of your point of view is kind of the same thing, is to kind of break it down into its most component parts. You know, where are you from? How did you grow up? What was your childhood like? What thing happened to you when you were a kid that is your superpower today? You know, things like that. That's where you find where your kind of truth is.
Yeah, that whatever your most difficult time was, probably the time when you were most in distress, probably helped you to develop your strongest skills.
Yeah. So we're all freaking out now, but you guys help people tell their story, and you've never heard a story that's ever interested you where there's like, oh yeah, and then my dad just bought me this thing and then I was cool. Right? That never, that's not interesting. And we're in this place where we're judging stress. Our opinion is the one thing that's fucking us up all the time. We have this opinion over this thing that's happening, and then now that's keeping us from adapting because, like I was saying, we're negotiating with this. Like, so many people are fighting to maintain their lifestyle, and there's so many people are being like, look, you got to keep some normalcy in your life, right? I know life is telling you to stay inside right now, but, like, you need to wake up and do some things that make you feel normal. As opposed to owning the fact that you are normal, you are okay, shit does change. Every now and then you stub your toe. Every now and then you get sick. But when you get sick, if you're standing there and you're just like battling it out with nature, being like, look, man, you know, my opinion is telling me that I have to, you know, it's like so much of our opinion. Your emotion is your opinion. And for some reason we think that is more valid than, you know, reporting what's going back. Which emotions are really important, but yeah. Yeah,
it's funny because everybody's always, before this happened, everybody's like, we want change, we want change, we want change. And it's like, okay, here you go.
Yeah, careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Now it's forced. Now what?
Well, and also it's, we want to, everyone's like, you know, we should stop driving. We're doing everything we wanted right now.
Yeah.
we're going to so the apocalypse means to unfold. It means to reveal. Doesn't mean, I mean, the Bible sort of adopted it as this thing because a lot of times cultures, it feels like the end of the world when the thing that is revealed is your culture is a lie.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it feels like a biblical end. But the root of the word apocalypse means to reveal.
To reveal.
Yeah, that's it. You're just revealing. And what happens is the idea of your life flashes before your eyes, and you're either in heaven or hell. It's because when your life flashes before your eyes and you're now humble and vulnerable, you either see something that's revealed to you that you're cool with, or something that's revealed to you that you're not cool with. And the one-word definitions were you either lived in hell, which is through blame, or you lived in heaven, which is through responsibility. And that was kind of, those are like the basic essence of that. So now we're in a moment of revealing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, you can complain all you want, but like you're literally negotiating with a wave that's coming to wash your shoes away. And you're standing there being like, but those are new shoes. You know, it's like the wave doesn't care, you know?
Yeah. I'm really fascinated. What's happening now and what's going to come out of this. 'Cause everybody's got a story now.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a story. And the differences between the way people are choosing to share those stories.
Yeah.
Some people are feeling like I have to share it now, or I'm not ready to share it, or I got nothing to say. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things going around now about people saying you don't have to be productive. You don't have to have a fucking podcast. You don't have to, you know, give yourself a break. Like, give yourself a break for a minute.
We're trying to maintain that I should be doing.
Yeah. And I love what you were saying. It's like the time for now is like, let everybody panic, let everybody get their doing out of the way, so we can get to what's real. You want to say a little more about that? It was really interesting.
Well, as a fighter, I mean, everyone needs I use martial arts as a metaphor for life all the time, because it is, right? It's not a sport. It's a way of life. The Tao means way. Like, so karate do means the way of the, it's always the way. And the way was, let's bring it to somewhere that everyone knows Mayweather. And he just stays back and lets you do what you need to do. And as you're doing it, you're learning, and then you're probably going to exhaust yourself, and then he's going to win. That's it. And then MMA, what happened was there's a bunch of people that started believing that their tradition, they were like, we're a stand-up fighting thing. And then they'd be like, and we train to not go to the ground. And then they met a guy that threw them on the ground. And their whole world was shaken up, right? Like, we're America, we're the best, and now now a virus has equalized us. And so you can either say, as you're on the ground, sit there, but I trained to not be on the ground. Or you can be like, I'm on the ground now. And then once you've gotten choked out, you need to high-five that guy, and you need to go to their school, and you need to start learning how to deal with being on. You know, it's like, that's what it's telling you. Is like, you've trained to not do this thing and your arrogance and your isolation and your insulation has led you to believe a social construct, which is a lie, which is, I cannot be taken to the ground. And then now here we are, laying on our backs.
Yep.
And that's beautiful. That is vulnerability. And then the other vulnerable side of it is you could be New Age vulnerable, which is cry. Or you can be martial arts vulnerable, which is get your shit together, your knee hurts a little bit, and stand up. Right? Stand up, put your hands up, bow, and ask them to teach you. Right? That's also vulnerable. But
I really like that, bow and ask them to teach you.
Yeah,
I feel like bow and ask this whole situation. What is
it asking you to do?
Yeah.
The world has a fever right now. And the world doesn't care. Just like your body doesn't care what dies off when you get your fever. That's it. You're not like considering like what's going on in your stomach versus your skin versus, no, you just need to sneeze and do what you need to do. Right.
Right.
And that's all it's doing right now. It's like scratching us, you know, and I think it's awesome.
Well, it feels like it's shown what, how vulnerable so many of the constructs
Yeah.
that form our life
Yeah.
have been. I mean, the entire financial
Totally.
model. I mean, you know, I think that's mostly what people are freaking out about is just, you know, the removal of, you know, how dependent all of our livelihoods are on revenue models and,
Yep.
and you know, getting paid because it's, you know, it's the opposite of a barter economy where everyone shares right now. And,
and get rich by keeping them beginners. So how many people are sitting here not knowing how to generate their own resources? They only know how to generate money to buy resources that they don't know how to generate. And now that you can't go and get those resources, you're sitting there realizing how you're kind of a sitting duck. And that puts people in a place of panic because we're used to being powerful, right? You're used to standing there being like, I'm the fastest person around because you got this cool car that your daddy bought you, right? And then next thing you know, you're standing on your feet and you're hanging out in Kenya and you're just about to get your ass handed to you by a 14-year-old. And you're not the fastest anymore. And you need to be okay with that. And because you're in a new environment. So now we're in a new environment. And so many times we don't consider what it's like to just lay there with our own thoughts and nothing to do. Right? That's really rare. Was that we're human beings, not human doings, right? And but we've become human doings. So it's just asking us to be, and stop trying, and you know, hopefully it'll pan out because we definitely, you know, like we're all doing shit. We wouldn't be doing this right now if we weren't still doing stuff. But I think you guys are important right now because you. Like, okay, go through the internet right now and watch how many people are sort of, you know, y'all stop messing with Britney. You know, kind of that sort of, like, you know, that breakdown moment of like, I feel alone. I need people to look at me right now. I need human contact. But that's coming off as oftentimes needy or desperate. And you'll never really hold that crowd beyond the people that care about you. So what kind of advice would you give to someone that is wanting to reach out to people and tell their story, but they might be feeling a little desperate? So how would you coach someone through that?
Like they might be feeling desperate around, I need to make money right now, or I need to make
there's a million ways that our desperation comes through and we don't even know we're desperate. Like I performed for 5 years not realizing that I was just coming off as a desperate asshole going through therapy on stage, and I wondered why everyone was gone by the end of the night. You know? But I had fun. But you know, how would you coach someone that if you watch them and you'd be like, okay, it's all about you right now. You got your PayPal up behind you. You got, you know, you're trying to tell your story. You think you're the only one that lost all their work, or, you know, like, how would you coach someone like that?
Want to take that first, and then I have some thoughts.
Sure. I mean, I think what you said is like, are you having fun? Is it something you believe in, you care about, that's meaningful to you?
Yeah.
Is your attitude that what you're sharing is of more like putting it out there as a service to others? A gift? Does it feel like a gift, or does it feel like you're in it for yourself? Yeah. Like what you said, actually I wrote this down. Where was it? Something about coming from a point of view of service rather than, you know, me.
Yeah, needy.
So that that you want to be helpful, and that it's something, you know, other teachers of mine have said, it's like, get out of your head and into your heart. Like, where in your body is it coming from? Is it coming from your thinking mind? Are you thinking about like, what's happening? Am I offering this and I'm going to get that? Or is it coming from the heart? It's like, is it coming from what I believe in and how I want to affect my community? And also, who are you putting it out to? Is it just out to everybody and it matters how many likes you're going to get? Or is it going out to, who's your audience? Is your audience your community? That's the best way to start, is people that you care about and are meaningful to you. I think there's a meditation, I forget what it is, it's Pema Chodron or somebody, but it's like you start with, what is it? Do you know what I'm talking about? You start with yourself, and then someone you love, and then a larger group of people that you care about, and then a stranger, and then someone you hate. But you send that compassion out in that, on those levels, so that you can get to the ultimate place, which is changing somebody's mind.
How do you? So that I think. See, this is the other thing that we don't consider. Okay, so you guys are like, what is your audience?
Mm-hmm.
That is the hard. That's the hardest thing. That's the hardest thing, because everyone's audience is like, everyone. I'm open to everyone. You know. So, but like, so how do you guys help someone boil down their audience like that? That's a hard thing, because we want to be. We're battling. Should I be super niche? You know, should I be should I be Ferrari for only people that like ham? Or should I be like what is? How do you guys help that?
Did you have something to say about the thing?
Well, it's interesting around how to adjust to this time, because, just in the interest of, we're going through this too, or I'm going through this around, I'm supposed to be the seasoned expert and, reassure people and guide people. And I'm also feeling on rough waters.
Yeah.
The week that all this was going down, just as one example, we were about to have a call with an executive who wanted to talk about hiring us for ongoing help. And, a couple of days before, he said, you know what, all 10 of my talks have been canceled. It's no use to talk right now. And so we're faced with, I guess I'm faced with, there's this Chip also has this great exercise he leads people through of, and I think this will lead back to the, how do we help our clients, of what business are you in? What business really are you in? And he's got this analogy that Amtrak, I think it was Amtrak, failed because they thought they were in the railroad business and not the transportation business.
Okay.
So what business are we in? And so part of it's just like, oh my God, our whole business is built on the live TED Talks and people gathering in real-time space. So maybe we don't have a business anymore. Well, we actually do, because, communicating a big idea isn't going away. Creating empathy and connection and interaction isn't going away. Touching people and inspiring them to shift their idea about things isn't going away.
Right.
So what is, maybe it's the format is different. And so, as one example, okay, well, if we assume that people aren't going to be convening again for another year, then what? How do we serve that executive who maybe was going to big conferences in Vegas? So, all right. And then it's the bow, and what do I have to learn? Maybe, maybe we need to become experts in the art of the webinar now, which I've really avoided, because I've seen it as this and so, and that's a whole different challenge, but I can also be grateful for that new kind of restriction and stricture, how to create empathy and connection through a little box.
Right.
And then I have something else to say. Yeah.
It's hard when you can't feel the room. So I'm such a live performer, and it's really hard to I watch these people pick up their guitars on their live streams, and I'm like, I wouldn't know. I every now and then just sit around and play, and I'll record it, but how do you? I don't know. It's another thing. But y'all's business is telling a story, and look at TED Talks. Look at how many, you get 10,000 people, 5,000 people in a room, but the talk will be watched 1 million times on the web. So you guys have a much better. You just sell everything you do for a nickel. You'll do better, So.
Yeah, and a lot of a lot of people don't, I think they don't really know how to create interactivity and connection.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of stuff around a webinar that I was just reading that that because of compression technology for both audio conferences and Zoom, in person, there's a lot more range to the human voice, whereas this compression technology, it makes it harder to understand nuance.
Yeah, and it sounds like crap. Yeah.
Yeah, and even video, like what we're going on right now, it's a little bit of a mindfuck because you're the same size as us, but you're not. You're kind of in front of us, and it's intimate, but you're not really. Yeah. And so it's really our brains go through a lot of.
Yeah, you guys could just swat out, and I'm fun.
Well, and the reason video meetings are so exhausting is because of that flatness. Like human beings are designed to interact, in 3 dimensions, and this flattens everything out. And so you're really aware of what you're doing. Like, am I like forward? Am I back? Am I fidgeting too much? All this stuff that you don't think about when you're in a live setting. And also paying attention. I have to look like I'm paying attention all the time, and that's exhausting. So that's why video meetings are really hard. So there's things you can do to mitigate that for sure.
I mean, I feel like oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I have nothing to say.
Nothing at all. I mean, just in terms of the fear, what I'm heartened by that I'm seeing a lot is people who have something to offer. And I think really I feel like right now, as well as bowing and what does this have to teach me and accepting is what do I have to give away? What do I have to offer? On one level, yoga teachers who just say, I'm going to offer a free streaming class. We've seen this flurry of free webinars teaching presentation skills, teaching how to handle virtual meetings. And I personally have really appreciated that it's been that people haven't been charging and trying to capitalize on it. Yeah. It's an interesting question around, is it even appropriate to ask for money right now? Is it appropriate to sell?
Yes, it is.
And, I think that if you see selling as, having profiting from as opposed to offering a service and helping, and if somebody actually has the funds to pay, and then they can, then it's appropriate.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that, Matt?
We have to start looking at what we do. I've been in 2 industries, health and wellness and music. And what is happening right now kind of happened to music. So this weird virus called Napster showed up, and it took away all of our money. And so then we just wanted exposure, and we just wanted to just get in front of people, and we figured if we could just get in front of people, they'll support us, right? So we cheapened what we did, and we started playing for exposure. I was playing 5-6 nights a week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a night for free just to get in front of people. I was giving away my CDs. I walked into towns where they knew every word, but I hadn't sold 1 album, right? And so then then it created this other infrastructure around big businesses that stream us, and then they take all of our money, and we still don't make much. And now this happens, and it's a bunch of people that just want to get in front of people, and now everyone's a trainer, and now we're jumping online, and it's the same thing of like, I want anyone to ask if when they walk down Bourbon Street, do they really give a shit or know the name of any of the bands that are playing any of those bars, because they're all free, right? And so when you're scrolling through the web and you're just seeing another person just looking at their camera, just trying to figure out how to get it working, how to play a show, our problem is not only do we not give them money, we don't talk about them. And that's why I stopped performing, because people, if I was playing for free, you didn't even give the respect of learning the name of the person playing, right? So the least people could do is share, but why would they share it? It's going to be there every night for free. Why would they,
Right.
It's like, I feel that in these times, we need to let people know that what is valuable to you, because a bunch of motherfuckers bought toilet paper and they're wondering why they got it, right? And now they're sitting around bored, right? And they can wash their ass, but they can't entertain themselves, and that toilet paper ain't going to tell them a story. And it's not going to inspire them to get up off their dirty, non-wiped butt and get out there and actually do something with themselves. And this is really valuable. And what you guys do is really valuable, is teaching us to sort of break out of our own heads and communicate, right? Life is communication and relationships. So we're devaluing art, and people need to pay for it. First, we need to pay for our, if we're not looking at art as a value, then what it means is we don't have our basics. So I think we all need to pull back and learn our basics, right? If all I have to do is just give you my art, then what I realize is I've made myself weaker, right? And I'm okay giving my art away now because I have a million other ways that I can make a living, right? But if art was the only way that I made a living and I had no other capacity to make a living, I'm now desperate because no one's buying art. So I think we should definitely charge people time, energy, or money, because we're giving it to them. They're scrolling through. They just look at just another person sitting alone in their living room trying to teach you yoga or how to do another push-up. And it's for free, so no one appreciates it. And we're going to say no one appreciates anything for free. And then now that we're sitting here, now we're going to be like, okay, so, but now it's different. No, it's not. No one appreciates it if it's for free. And, but then there are things that are open source, right? What do you share that is everywhere? Like there's a million versions of, that's why I wouldn't, you know, if someone wants to learn yoga, I'll be like, here, watch one of these 5 videos. And if you need anything else, then call me and we can work something out.
Yeah, I really like what you said about your kind of philosophy about teaching, is that if the student is reliant on the teacher, then you've harmed your students.
Yeah, totally. And then if the teacher is reliant on the students, right? So that's another thing, because we have to realize, like, why, you know, how many performers are out there just, you know, it's like, it's the joke of the comedian or, you know, the guitar player or whoever. We're on stage because we need love from a room full of strangers, right? And so now are we witnessing the fact that we'll do anything for validation, right? What are we doing just to get validation? And I think this is an important awakening for us to see. And you know, I'm not judging anyone that's just sharing, and you know what I mean, but we, like you guys have to say, we have to see what are we giving it from our head or from our hearts? Are we doing it from desperation, or are we doing it because it's like, hey, I'm working out, come in, you guys want to hang with me? But
yeah, I mean, like what we've been doing, or I think what we've always done with when we work with people is, at the same time that we're actually helping them to create a talk, whether it's writing a script or editing something they've written or doing design, is that there's an educational component to it too. Yeah. So that by the time we're finished, they're going to have learned our process, which is something that that's all we do. We just do that one thing. Whereas the people we're working with may do maybe in a completely different, they may be in science or any number of things. Yeah. And they're experts at what they do. Yeah. And so when we're helping them develop their story, we're also helping them develop the ability to kind of do it themselves in a way. So that the next time they're going to work on a talk, they're going to have a lot of tools that we've worked with them to actually get a little farther the next time. And that's not to say that they wouldn't necessarily want to still work with us, because like I said, the better you get, kind of the more important it is to have somebody to bounce things off of. Yeah.
The more you know, the more you know, don't know too. So, you know, you guys will help them put together
I always like to say, like, our final handoff, like the script is a living document. It's not meant to be hermetically sealed for them to like recite it faithfully every single time. I'm assuming that they're going to change it. I want them to change it. Yeah. You know, we have talking point guidelines, and when you're on that slide, you're probably going to, something different will drop in for you to say with every single audience. Yeah. So I want it to evolve.
If you guys would give anyone, I don't know if you have this, rapid fire, but if you were scrolling through the interwebs, like social media, and so many people are doing something live or webinar, if you guys were to give anyone advice on like, all right, I'm about to do a webinar, this is my first one, or this is, I'm trying to make this happen right now. Yeah, what kind of advice would you give?
Well, what would you say are some of the problems you'd imagine people are having? Like, what's a specific question?
Oh, yeah. So,
what's a specific fear?
Yeah, and that's an interesting one, because I mean, most of the time people's fear is just like, oh shit, I'm out of work and I need to, what can I give, right? But like, for example, someone was talking to me the other day, they're like, I just got to do it. And I'm like, no, no one cares about your webinar if all you're thinking is, I just got to do a webinar to try to make some money. Like, no one cares about that webinar, because that's desperate, it's cheap, it's self-serving, and it's you're not going to be able to give anything other than your own fear, right? So I always say, what do you truly own? Like, what do you really, really, really want to share to somebody? But I don't know, is there any advice that you guys would give someone in the presentation itself, right? Like, I have my ideas, but how would you guys go about that? Or even how would you guys get someone thinking about, like, okay, I want to do a webinar. I've been out of work. I've already bedazzled my sign with my Venmo name, and I'm ready to do my webinar. How would you break it down for me?
I mean, there's the technical component,
Okay.
What's your kind of, what are they called? The minimum viable product,
MVP, yeah.
MVP, what's your MVP? Like,
yeah,
it's really easy to get overwhelmed by, I've got it. What if I don't have a good webcam or lights or this or that, or, so like there's some basic things like you can use the little Apple earbuds. Just make sure it's not, rustling against your collar. Just technical things like looking at the, being a little creative with your lighting. Like, there's a door over here. I put a little piece of paper over here to diffuse the light, and like, we don't have any of that. Like, you've got the whole studio going on. We don't have any of that stuff.
Who, me? I don't have anything over here. I don't have a problem.
you and your SM, what is it? SM 135 or whatever.
Yeah, my SM7B. Yeah.
SM7B.
I have multiple.
Yeah, and now I can't borrow them. God damn it.
You can. I still have one. I also have an old.
I'm gonna have to.
Huh?
I'm gonna have to like sneak into your house to borrow your equipment.
Oh, I have like 12 other microphones. You don't worry about that.
There's the technical aspect. So, what's your minimum viable product that's gonna be good enough? Like, don't get overwhelmed by it being perfect. But do pay attention to it. What's the lighting like? How are you sitting? What are you dressed? What's in the background? Things like that. And then as far as what you're sharing, like, back to what I said, is it like, does it feel like it's a service or a gift? And I love what you said, which is you can really only give what you own, and your definition of what you own is it's something you can't buy. You can't buy that skill. It's something that you got through time and practice. Yeah. So what is the deepest part of that? What's really original about that? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, my answer will be where I'm at right now, and I'm in the thick of that. I'm in the flow of that too. We're looking at that for ourselves, and so my answer to you might be different if we were having this a month from now. I'd say that one thing. I'd say if you're conceiving of, I've got an hour with these people, right, is don't focus on reducing and, what can you remove from what you have to say? First of all, like, I think it's what people try to say is it's this idea of more is not necessarily more. Yeah. If you've got an hour with someone in terms of content, you don't want to try to teach them everything that you know. Maybe pick one aspect of what you know. So, for example, with us, it might be we might do a webinar on just how the first 10 minutes and the last 10 minutes of the talk, and focus on that. Oh, that's smart. Or only a webinar that's only focused on the visual design, or only on how to mine your own unique genius and point of view. So you can do like a series of them, but you want to give the audience enough not to overwhelm them, but really think about what's that nugget of wisdom that I want them to end with. You know, what is that changed idea? And try to find it, like try to hone into the one, like kind of the TED Talk type of thing of what's that one thing I want them to come away with. And then maybe what are 3 things that they need to understand through the course of my webinar. Like, this is getting kind of geeky, but you know, audiences work well by clustering things. We like to cluster. So at the beginning of the webinar, you'd say like, listen, we're going to cover 3 things today. And especially with webinars, I think that it's one to many, but it can get to be exhausting if you're just this silent, you know, Brady Bunch square. So you want to be short. Think about how you can break up the narrative. So you probably don't want to go more than 10 minutes without having some kind of interaction. You know, take advantage of that. You know, take advantage of the comment window and ask people to start asking questions, and let me stop and let me do a poll. You know, you want to bring people in. Allow people enough time at the end to come back and to actually, maybe you want to have a little interactivity at the end and Q&A.
Okay. Sorry, go
yeah.
on. You had something else.
Oh, well, I'd say that, you know, in terms of the desperation wanting to sell, what I recommend, and, you know, we're thinking about this for ourselves too, is you want to, I think you want to really think about if all this audience does is interact with me on this webinar and I never talk to them again, what do I want them to take away?
Oh, that's,
you know, like really focus on being educational, as opposed to trying to, you know, kind of warm them up for a sale.
And that's the idea of a gift, right?
Yeah.
I'm giving this to you, like you leave regardless.
What do I want to teach them? And it's that whole thing of like 1,000 true fans. And even on the sales cycle, everybody's at different points. You know, maybe you have 20 people on the call and maybe one of them is feeling that kind of urgency and maybe they'll follow up and hire you. But maybe the other 19 are at different points. Maybe a year from now, they'll get back in touch. So you really I think of it like not so much hunting as farming.
Yeah.
You know, like you're cultivating. And then I had something to say around like, you know, kind of following up with like an email with.
Yeah, well, what you just said reminded me about the idea that what you want them to come away with is something that they can really use, something practical. I think the worst kinds of trainings are the ones where they give you like a huge giant stack of books and 10,000 things to learn and memorize and practice, and it's so overwhelming that you can't do anything with it. Like, it's all really good information, but I can't go away and in the next hour create something. So what we try to do when we're working with people is actually give them something that they can actually go away and actually use.
You know, that's amazing that you say that, because when in self-defense, you always say the most dangerous self-defense teacher is the guy that got in one fight, right?
Right.
Because that person thinks that is the way to solve that problem. And you'll go to these places and they'll be like, this is the way that I make. No, but it's like, you guys are telling people, no, this is the broad way to become who you are. And that's the thing that sells. Like, so many people, when I would work with evangelistic dance nonprofits, they'd be like, everyone's a dancer. No, they're not. But what everyone has, though, is something that they want to show up to and practice as well. So it's a blanket of art. So it seems like that's what you guys are doing. It's like, how do you dive into your authentic self, and then how do you communicate that?
Yeah, and everybody's practicing at their own level. Like, I think the greatest thing that I've learned working with you is that at every stage, you've always given me something that I can practice at whatever level I'm at on my own.
Yeah.
And I always just come back and go, is this right? Is that right? But at every stage, you know, whether I was doing, you know, certain stretches down on one knee, I did that for years because that's what I could do.
Yeah.
And then when I started to be able to stand up, then, you know, we pushed it a little farther. But the biggest thing was I could always take it home and practice it on my own. And for the longest time, I didn't really have the motivation. For whatever reason, I didn't do that. It was always my plan to get up and do it on days when I didn't come to class. Yeah. But now I am. Now now it's so much in my body because we took, like you said, the thing you own comes from the time and practice that you put into it.
Yeah.
I finally am discovering that I do have the ability to practice what I've learned at my own pace, even if, you know, and I love when you're saying, you know, I was like writing everything down so that I remembered the sequence exactly, so I didn't practice it wrong.
Yeah.
And you were like, fuck that, it doesn't matter. Practice what you know, and, you know, be intuitive. And I'm there now because that's the way you did it. And it's really similar in how we try and work with clients.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you practice what you know, you do it to the level you can do it. You, you know, you get advice when you need it, and we keep building it. And that's why we like working with people over a period of time, because every time we work together, you get a little better. And so we up the ante a little bit.
Okay. This is always a fun one. I've written down here, taking your own advice. Okay, so now you guys are in a time, and I love this point, whenever you're a teacher, like how many times I have to wake up and just be like, oh shit, I got to take my own advice right now, you know? And so out of all of your own advice that you've given people, what is the hardest thing that you're just like, because I've told people to do things, and then I've had to take my own advice, and I'm like, I don't like telling them to do that anymore, because I don't, you know, but you've heard me say that to you, Matt, like, I don't like doing this, right? Yeah. But yeah, so how is it taking your own advice, and what are some of the things that you're like, oh, that was good advice, and then what are the other ones you're like,
like you mean us taking our own advice?
Yeah. This one, can I start off on that? The biggest one is we're both kind of perfectionists. We're both designers and artists and creative people, and we want it to be fucking awesome at all times. And like starting a podcast or starting a blog or writing an essay and posting it on LinkedIn, it's like, what if it sucks? What if it's not great? What if it's not exactly perfect? But you know,
they're supposed to understand storytelling. Like that blog post sucked.
The done is better than perfect. That's the hardest thing for both of us.
Ain't nothing like done, man. It's beautiful. Yeah. Then you can move on.
What do you think?
Perfectionism, being visible.
Ooh, that's a doozy.
You know, being visible. Well, you know, being visible and vulnerable. You know, I often
here we are.
You know, I don't know if I thought of it, if somebody else did, but I sometimes call myself like midwife to genius. So I'm like the midwife. So well, I'm like I'm kind of like the Clive Davis into the talent. You know, maybe I'm not going to be John Bon Jovi up on stage. I'm going to be like Clive back. You know,
back there.
And
great.
Right. And so the kind of the wizard behind the curtain, and but it can also be you know, kind of nice and cozy in the cave, you know. I could be a little bit too pro cave. You know, just it feels, you know, just kind of coming out there, you know, and at the same time for me, I you know, I was in all of the High School Musicals, and I really do love performing, and I think that the perfectionism and it's the fixed mindset versus growth mindset. Chip calls it prove versus improve. So I'm realizing this, that if we're going to get really good at a podcast and launching our own blog, and even me getting out speaking, that there's no way I'm going to get good at it and get good at that craft. I'm only going to get good at it through doing it, through making mistakes and learning. And honestly, I'm still on that precipice. And I feel like that's one thing that this crisis has to teach me, is finally forcing me out into it and just being freaking okay.
Well, yeah. And the gift of it is that everybody's on the same level. Everybody's at minimum viable product, unless this is something you've been doing already and you're in the flow. Basically everybody's doing just really minimal stuff. Like even the TV hosts are all doing it from their house on their phones or whatever it is. So it's really leveled the playing field. So that's kind of a great opportunity, you know?
So yeah. And this is, I mean, I have a lot of experience right now with crisis. Me in crisis. We've been dating for a while. But you know, it's like I launched my online stuff, last year? Well, I started it last year, a little longer.
Yeah, I remember.
And to the tune of, I had some money saved from doing Into the Badlands and stunts and stuff like that. And then I got and then I was just like going through company after company, trying to learn how and trying to make it perfect. And I woke up every morning and Googled, how to make your own Netflix. And I started doing all this content. And then you remember, then someone hacked and cleaned out my bank account. Just done. And everything I owned, all my safety net was gone. So I was like, well, screw it. I'm launching it now. Minimum viable product. And then so I started. So then I just committed and started making content. And then I had another family issue, and then something other really big happened, and so I was like, oh God, I got to leave for a little while. This is now I can't be in the room, and now I just have to start throwing out courses. And that was in December, and that was my first blessing of being able to do that. But it wasn't, I didn't launch anything, because I mean, if I would have kept on to that, to all the money that they had, like the biggest gift in the world was getting all of my money stolen.
Yeah, right.
Because I didn't have that safety net sitting there going, oh, I'll just try this. I mean, because, I had money to just try things. And it had taken me just a year. I'd gone through like 4 different companies, gotten rid of them, tried all these different things. And then finally, I just woke up one day and I'm like, wait, why is there nothing in this bank account? And I was like, uh-oh. And so I was at 0. And it was, like for some reason,
that's the point where you said, screw it, I'm just going to start. I'm just going to work what I have.
Yeah, and it was the biggest. And the funny part was I'm fine. And I remember I was working in restaurants, working 80, 90 hours a week, and I lost like $500, and that damn near I thought I was going to die, right? And I remember just going into that restaurant and quitting, because I was like, no way should I ever be working this hard and not be able to just take $5,000 and just throw it in a fire for no reason, right? And I couldn't lose $500 and be okay. I had to borrow money after that. And so then this next time I got a lot more than $500 taken from me, and I was like, I'm going to be fine. I'm okay. And that being said, it made me go, oh shit, you're doing the right thing. You are on the right path. I'm not rich, but I can lose money and be okay. And so I was like, well, I'm fine. Like, what's going to happen? I'm just going to launch a bunch of stuff, and what am I going to do? Lose more money? I don't have any money to lose. All that's going to happen is like every now and then there might be a troll pop up on your website and be like, that wouldn't work in the Octagon, or is it racist, or just like some stupid troll. But like, those guys are the most irrelevant human beings. It's like, who cares about them? And so I just said, screw it. I'm just going to launch.
And you're learning things on your own, and you're making mistakes. And
I didn't know how to do any of this streaming stuff, but since I wanted to share Scott's talks, his astrology talks, so I was like, fine, I'll stream it. And
that's a big thing for us as well, especially for me. You're a little bit more, just do it, screw it, let's do it.
Yeah, a little bit. I talk a good game.
It's a pain in the butt. The hardest part that I've learned is like with the streams, like I'm learning how to do it. And then if anyone wants to know about all the things that they don't tell you, because it's always because this is what's going on. Like, there's a lot of techie people that are doing this stuff, and so they know what the buttons mean and they know what all that stuff does. And then, like, for example, I had this one streaming thing, and it says, yeah, you just schedule it, and it just pops up, and everyone's like, it's easy. And I'm like, it's easy for a developer. It's not easy for a, I just spent the past year jumping, like fake dying on camera and, being as analog as it gets in a muddy field in Ireland. And you're thinking that I have the same skill set as you, right? So then you go in there and come to find out that they didn't tell you about this button, or they didn't tell you that this has to sync with that, or they didn't tell you that, there's all these little things that you need to look at. And so I started learning those and just trying to figure it out. But it does come to the tune of, you put it out, they tell you it's easy, and then next thing you know, you get 30 emails of people going, I'm trying to tune in and I can't see, and so that's why this is nice, because people can just like try it on Facebook and there's no one's really, you look at the numbers when people are watching, there's like 3 people watching, like not many people.
Right.
You're not going to get yelled at. No one's investing money. You know what I mean? Like no one just paid $50 to watch you. So.
Can I say one more thing around your question around the business model? Like, what would you say to someone who, is feeling panicked about making money right now? And again, this is our approach to how to leverage the educational aspect of a webinar for your business. I'd say my recommendation right now is to focus on the pure educational aspect, but then to be clear on, as a follow-up, as like a follow-through communication, what could you offer if people want to go deeper and pay you money for it?
And that's the marketing model right now. Give them something and then let them know, hey, this is the basics, but if you want more, we're here.
So as 2 examples, and I think it's a lot about building your tribe, building your community. There are 2 webinars that we attended recently with other really established companies in our field who've been doing this for a long time, and they've really been building their global. And that's another thing, is like, if you're, this can be a global market. If what you're teaching can translate to other countries. Like, we have a steady client right now who's an executive coach in Tokyo, and I met him through a fluke in San Francisco, and we've been helping him for a year now over Zoom.
Yeah,
it's been really special. So, we're all humans, and so what can translate around the world? But there's one one webinar that we were on through a really established company, and they had, what did you say, like 3,000 people?
3,000 people, yeah.
Who logged in all over the world. And the other had, did you say something like 750?
No, like 350, but in the hundreds.
And so that is, again, that there was a purity to the educational aspect of the webinar. Like, great, thanks so much, And then in that case, in both of those cases, they had ready a really professional follow-up email and saying, hey, thank you so much. Here's the slide deck. Here are the tips we talked about. And for those of you who want to go deeper, here's our 6-week course. Here's our here's our coaching program. And so then it was really, if I'm at that point in the sales cycle and I want to go deeper, I can, and I think we sometimes say there's this thing called, selling from the stage. And, the other thing I'd say is, along with the educational aspect, sometimes people are shy to sell from the stage because they don't want to seem salesy. And what we've said in the past is, you can frame it near the very end. Don't make it the very last thing, but you can choose to say, listen, for those of you who are interested, here are a couple ways that I could be of service to you if you want to go further.
Oh, that's,
that's
good.
Yeah, but don't make it about that. Yeah, because you want to allow people, if they want more of you, if they want to go deeper, give them an easy way to do that.
Well, we always talk about stepping into discomfort, and as artists, our most uncomfortable place isn't walking on stage. It's asking for you to support us, and that's a really hard part. And then, and how do you, I've been trying to keep track of metrics and watching the movie stars that I've been working at. I watched this inability to be humiliated. Like, they definitely bottle it up. Like, it's definitely on the inside that, some serious broken souls moving around. But the idea is they're just trying things and they're trying to cultivate, and their job is to get out there and be as raw as possible. But when I'm watching what's going on, what I'm trying to be able to do is figure out that formula of, just put things out, don't judge it, and just go, and then be able to. I started keeping metrics of what's selling and what's not, and I realized that I didn't want to bombard people with myself. And then I looked at the numbers, and every time I sent an email out, I sold things, and that only rippled for like maybe 2 days. And every time I didn't send an email out, I didn't sell anything. And then I was like, okay, so I'm going to keep sending emails. And then the next thing that I noticed was when I was judging myself for sending it out, I had all these people saying support your local businesses and stuff like that. Yet they would complain when their friends would send them, 2 emails a week, but they're getting 3 a day from Amazon. And we need to take a page from them, and as small businesses and as people that have a community, just like ask them like, hey, like we're going to be in contact with you. I'm trying to always give something that, like I want it to be interesting or funny or, give you something every time. But I don't think people understand how much work goes into that. Like, Matt, you're a graphic designer. And so everything that happens, you're designing it, and then you guys are writing it, and you guys are, you got to produce it. And I mean, for something that actually is a quality product, I mean, the level of respect I have for anyone that can make anything even halfway decent now, because I have to do everything. I'm just like, it's like, I'm just like big props. So how much does the design aspect play in this?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. I've been working on a piece about does design matter? Does graphic design matter? Because you can look at some of the most widely viewed TED Talks. Their slides are garbage. Yep. They're so bad. Yeah. So does it really matter? I mean,
it's content.
Yeah, I think in a live setting, it matters a little less. Because depending on how dynamic a speaker you are and what the venue is, it's important, but you can get by without it being great. But online, I think because of the flattening out effect and because of how tiring it is to stay focused. I think if you're gonna use graphics, it's actually kind of a little bit of a break. So it's in a way, it's kind of an interaction, because you're not listening to me talking. I'm like looking at a picture or reading something, and then I'm interacting with it directly, but I'm not worried about how I'm looking or anything like that. And so if you're doing what a lot of people do with slides, which is put their script on a slide in the form of bullets, or put a big chart on there with too much information that's hard to parse, then you're kind of doing your audience a disservice, and you're just adding to the noise. And so design does matter. So, and also you have to think about, I was just thinking about this the other day, everybody's viewing this on a laptop or even a phone sometimes. And so if you've got if you've got like 10 bullets on a slide, you're going to be like, what the fuck is that? I don't know what that is. So you're kind of like we always say, like 3 bullets to a slide, or no bullets, just a picture, or just one major thought.
Or one stat.
But keep it really simple.
All right, so you guys are shifting, and you guys offer this ability to put presentations together for people, and this is that moment where you're stuck in your house and you have to help people. What is
what do we offer? What are we offering right now?
Yeah, what are you guys offering? What do you guys bring into the revolution?
How can we be of service?
Well, we've been thinking about actually calling everybody we know and all our clients and saying, let's just have like a little half-hour talk and talk about what you're doing and what you're working on, what you're creating, and just have it be sort of a little free-ranging conversation where we use our genius extraction kind of questions to kind of get to the bottom of where you're coming from. We could kind of do that with you right now. Thinking that might be fun. Like, how could we, if we were going to talk to you about, resilience as an example of our process. So let's hit some of the questions.
Sure. And I'd say that, if people watching are interested, they should definitely go to our site, and you can offer that at the end, and sign up for our mailing list, because we are looking at ways, normally we work with a smaller handful of people who, like executives and founders who are giving big stage talks, but we're actively now looking at for ourselves of doing a lot more of our own educational webinars, and even putting together like a virtual course or like a training program that anybody can participate in, where
Okay.
the bar of entry is a lot more doable.
Before we get started on the gotcha journalism part of my what you guys are gonna do, yeah, like what groups of people do you guys think? So it's like, for example, there's always a TED Talk about like someone was telling me about, have you heard this person? I'm like, look, it's the same story every time. I had this corporate job, I was doing this, and then I had to like stop doing that, and I just became a trainer, or I started following my dreams. And I'm like, that's fine, that's great, but what about the person that is really going, and whenever they quit their corporate job, they didn't have, 100 some grand in the bank, and it's like, what about the person that was just like, I remember the day of losing everything, having to sell a car to pay for another guy just to live in some crappy sublease to where I could sleep in a $500 car, and then just try to go off and get 3 jobs to where I could at least have a parking lot to sleep in order for me to just like go and try to find a girlfriend that has already moved on. It was like just losing everything. I had 0 money in the bank, and like, how do you just dig yourself out of that hole? No, I did not follow my dreams because I was in a corporate job and making 6 figures and decided that that wasn't bringing me joy. I was fighting with my joy from the second I started. I was like, no, this is bullshit. I just need to try to do this. And, it's a shit show. So like, what groups of people do you think, would you really like to, like, that might not have the money to work with you guys, but like that you would like to work, like what interests you? Like, who would you like to talk to?
People who
yeah, it's like, we're always trying to grab the, it's like everyone wants to hear about the corporate executive, and I'm fine. I know a lot of interesting corporate types. They're not that interesting. You know what I mean? It's not like I just interviewed my buddy who's like this anonymous like homesteader guy that just, put together all this handyman stuff, and next thing you know, he's living completely off the grid in Hawaii and like saves animals and restores land, and he would never let you know he exists.
Yeah, people like that. I mean, that's why we're going to start a podcast as well, is that we know people like you. We have a ton of really interesting, eclectic friends, and we just want to talk. We always have great, wide-ranging conversations with those people anyway.
Yeah.
And me personally, I was addicted to podcasts forever,
right?
And I just love listening to interesting people talk about things they love.
You guys do know a lot of interesting people. Like, I'll talk about something, you're like, hey, have you met my friend? And you
yeah, totally.
Everybody, and it's because you're interested. So, like, interested people are oftentimes very interesting, and you guys can even deflect your interestingness by just being interested in other people.
I mean, I always thought it would be a really fun challenge to find somebody who doesn't think they have anything to say or has an interesting life of any kind, and actually create a TED Talk for them. That would be fun and interesting.
That'd be awesome.
To actually make that kind of a challenge.
Yeah.
Actually, you've got me. I'm going to think more about this question, but you've just got me thinking that right now. And I guess the thought experiment that it prompts for me is if I detach from the economic exchange, if money wasn't an object of who would I want to help, whose story am I interested in right now? I'm interested in I'm interested in kind of segments of people, or people who are being of service on the front lines of our society right now, who don't necessarily have a platform. I'd be interested in talking to people who are serving the homeless population right now in Oakland, or even people who are in these, this whole, one of the things I think that's been turned upside down is what's considered to be essential jobs. People who are actually in service jobs right now, and what are they going through? And what do they have to teach us about what's important in society?
Sorry.
Oh, I mean, I'm interested in people who are on the front lines right now of the arguments for guaranteed income, for the people, purpose, planet, like of corporate, like whatever is the opposite of the profit motive and what's gotten us in trouble. In terms of industries right now, I'm particularly interested. I mean, I see a business development opportunity, but I really would like to. I'm very curious about working with scientists and geneticists and people who are on the front lines of helping us to understand what's going on, or people who are at the front lines of developing vaccines for what's going on, because actually scientists are a really interesting component where they have so much core knowledge, but they're not storytellers, and they're usually not designers. And I think that, like, if you go to a science or medical conference, those slides make my eyes bleed. And I think that they're, especially in that's the kind of community where what they have to say is literally life-changing, but it's lost because they don't know how to explain themselves.
Yes. No, that's true. There's also that other side. I mean, how many times, Matt, have you heard me go off what does the Dalai Lama even do? Like, what does Oprah do? Like, they're the most unimportant people on this planet.
Yeah.
But for some reason, Gandhi said what's going to bring down Western culture is false idol worship, right? We worship these things that have no relevance to what's going on. And I think first responders, people talking about, I think the other story that needs to be told is the story of why they didn't adopt Western medicine into China a long time ago, because they said Western medicine doesn't make you take responsibility for your habits. And that's what we're looking at now. I mean, we have my cousin Frankie, who's a wonderful nutritionist, and he would always say, we study how to fight disease, not create health, right? He taught me that when I was about 10 years old. Right. And he'd be like, yeah, so what we want to do as doctors is you're going to sneeze, and we need to tell you the name of that sneeze. And if we can name it, we can make a pill to sell you to kill it. That's the formula, as opposed to teaching you how to create an environment in the body that actually can sort of garbage in, garbage out kind of thing. And, get the immune system strong, get the habits strong. And then I started realizing that, it's not, in the opinion world, it's not fun that kills you. It's most people's idea of fun, right? And when you say the word fun to somebody, oftentimes it's things that aren't serving their ability to create ease in the body, or, they think creating ease in the body is, going to wine country and eating foods that might, they're going to come back weaker, but they're going to come back more relaxed because they escaped. Right. And then the other thing was helping people define the difference between a catharsis and a spiritual moment. Right. So many times we have these spiritual moments. We think they're spiritual moments, but you went to Burning Man and you had a crazy catharsis, and you come back wrung out, and you're just you're a rag that's been wrung out, and you're relaxed, but that's not a spiritual moment. You had a catharsis. And a cathartic moment can take a lot of you, but it rarely takes more of you than that spiritual moment, right? Like, this is the world asking us to just have a little, like, take a moment and feel, like, sit back, enjoy. And I personally feel that, people like you going into scientists and, places like that, teaching them to talk. You guys know Charlie, our buddy Charlie. He's got Engaged Wisdom, his new website, where he's going through all the Zen centers, and he's taken all their tapes from the 70s and 80s, and they have basements with thousands of talks from these Zen masters, all for decades.
Wow.
And he's putting them into a digital format, and he's putting them into like a living, breathing archive, right? It's called Engaged Wisdom, and that's what his work is right now. And it's funny because I've listened to a couple of the tapes, and it's like the most boring shit you'll ever, what I mean? You have to have like a certain level of you have to be Zen just to listen, because they just talk like this, and it's, what I mean? There's no performance. So like, you guys, I think, should take those talks
Oh yeah.
and add graphics and like, you know, cut them up and, you know,
Oh,
like, make
Oh
them
yeah.
okay.
That's
interesting.
a good idea. I like
Like
that. I like that. I'll give him a call.
Are they in the
Yeah.
public domain? Or are they're in the archives?
Not yet. I mean, he's working with,
Okay.
but I, you know, you saying that because there are so many people that all their energy has gone to being good at this thing.
Mm.
You know, it's like, how many people do you know that, like, it's like, for example, like Robert De Niro is like, apparently, you know, he's just empty inside because he's such a great actor. He can become anything, but he just has
Right.
nothing, you know, sit in a room alone with him. It's just like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robert De Borino, you know what I mean? It's like, that's what he is. And this is, you know, you watch him do, I'm sure he's awesome. I would,
He's an empty vessel, man.
yeah, that's what he is. And that's why
Fill him
he's
up.
good at what he does. He's a genius.
But that reminds me of who I really love to talk to are people like you who are like multidisciplinary, cross-cultural. You know, you have a lot of broad experience, and you bring it together through your own personal point of view.
Mm.
You know,
Well,
like
I'm always
you have
the same.
experience.
You know, I'm lucky that I have this thing that I can do anywhere.
Right.
Like, you know, it's like breathing is breathing is breathing is breathing, and let's do it. And
Right, but you've taken, like you say, it's like you're kind of agnostic about what would you call it? Discipline, practice, whatever. Like
yeah,
the things you learned from your Korean teacher, you mix with the stuff you learned from your Persian teacher, and you kind of tossed them up, and you kind of found this way inside of that combines a bunch of things, and everybody that we're really interested in is like that.
Yeah.
They're not stuck in one direction. Like this is the way to do things.
yeah.
They've had a lot of different experience, and they're like mixing things up. They like kind of cross pollination. That's
And they're
the thing
curious.
that interests
They're
me.
curious.
That's the thing that
Actually,
interests
I
me
think
the
the
most.
people we like who are at the kind of top of their game are also some of the most humble.
You have to be very curious, and you have to be very creative, and you also have to like know that the only way to keep things sacred is to make sure that you don't treat them sacred. Like
Yeah, right.
the easiest way to kill an art form or a culture is to insulate it and become a slave to its traditions. Like name one art form. Like there's a reason why no one gives a shit about certain art forms that just like stay stuck in one thing. It has to evolve. And that's why, and the reason why art usually adapts is because of struggle, right? There's a reason why Black culture is probably one of the most influential things on the planet, is because their art is always evolving and adapting because there's always a struggle there, right? And then there's a reason why no one gives a crap about smooth jazz.
What is smooth jazz? Is that like Kenny G?
It's just weather channel music, you know. It's just like it's shopping music, right? You know, it's just music you just put on in the background, go to, you know, TJ Maxx and just like look at shit on sale. You know, who cares? But that being said, like struggle makes some good art. And also, if you look at people that blended thing, if you look at hip hop, it was, I mean, look at how many things took rhythm and blues or took blues music and turned it into a million other things, because it's so sacred. The way you preserve it is by using it in any kind of format you can. You know, it's like everything is R&B, everything is blues, everything is that format right now. That's what pop music basically is. And I think we need to acknowledge that most cultures that insulate themselves usually die. Like, it's not good. Right? Yeah. And that's why this is funny, like watching the middle class die off, and I'm like, name one culture that killed the middle class that did good after that. You know, like, and if you can't learn from that, you know, it's like, what is it? Consciously protecting your ignorance is the definition of stupidity. You know, we are consciously protecting our ignorance. And, you know, we need to, I have this idea now that I came up with this talk yesterday about, I love the Black Panthers, like, you know, community organizers telling, basically being like, hey, you come into this neighborhood and you start treating us weird, we're going to shoot back, you know. But that idea of coming together and protecting your community is very important, not through violence, but through just like, hey, we got to balance this out. And I was like, we need to come up with like the Green Panthers, like people that do plant food. And my buddy was he's talking about this $6,000 fine that he gets every month from the city of Berkeley because he planted 4 fruit trees in public space. And there you go. There's your metaphor.
Yeah, guerrilla gardening. That's right. Yeah.
You know, we're all fighting for food.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because you live in a parking lot and there's tons of land all around us. I mean, I have so much area that, you know, people hopefully can start realizing that how much money are you going to save when you just go and pull it out of the ground, you know, and how much better is it for the environment and for the waste stream and stuff like that. All right. So how are you guys going to fix me?
You want to ask him some questions?
Yeah. So, I mean, what I love, we always talk about resilience, and that's kind of like the essence of, I think that's the thing I'm always chasing with learning from you is that piece.
Okay.
How to be good at being lost, and how to be good in the moment and managing uncooperative environments.
Okay.
So in terms of how you got to where you're at, one of the questions we like to ask, I'm going to read this, is what basic human quality or value was important to you, especially as a child, that's always been true for you and has become important to your success and transformation?
Practice and don't skip steps.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have certain rules, and I know that some of my rules are always know where home is. So that means always establish your baseline, like know your baseline, know your container, know your home, and don't go so far outside of that home and that you can't get back. So, for example, if your baseline is, you know, if you're fighting, your baseline is you feel your feet on the ground, your hands are up, you know, you have your footwork there, and hopefully you can always get back to there. And when you're and then when I say don't skip steps, it's a lot of people get in over their head. If you look at the 3 pursuits, stuff, then self, then purpose, it's like the hierarchy of pursuits. The first thing is like when you're a little kid, you need to learn what stuff is. Like don't put fork in outlet and don't put hand on oven. And that's where you know, my bicycle is there, mom's car is there. How do you cross the street, right? And then you need to start discovering yourself, which is I kind of like putting the fork in the outlet. I kind of, you know, like, you know, it's like I sort of, you know, it's like I like fire. I'm a cat person. You know, there's all these things that you start learning about yourself over time. Like, you know, I'm a punk guy, and, you know, those dudes are into The Cure, and I'm into you know, I'm more of a Depeche Mode guy. You know, like there's all these things about yourself. And then you start discovering your purpose because you start moving through life with your own sense of self. That being said, I think a lot of times we skip this idea of finding ourselves, and we jump right to purpose, right? Like, I want to please people. I want to, you know, get a good job. You know, we're trying to go so far into purpose. Now we're wondering why we're having this huge identity crisis as people. Like, identity politics is going to be really, really, really huge because I think we're trying to find ourselves again, right? Mm-hmm. So I've found not skipping steps really helps me out. It's like you don't want to – I love motorcycles. You don't want to buy like – you know, a 200 horsepower Italian motorcycle for your first motorcycle. You don't want to skip the steps of like slowly learning how to ride a motorcycle, because my other rule is everything is fun until it isn't. And so you want to ask yourself, are you able to receive the isn't fun into your body or into your life, right? Like, you know, that's, so we skip a lot of steps, like, you know, go big or go home. Well, you know, you need to like define big, right? Because you don't want to stand in front of Mike Tyson in 1989 and think that, you know, like you can take his big hit. Like, you need to know yourself and, you know, actualize and go from there. So I think a lot of it is I don't skip steps, and I'm okay with practicing, you know, like learn to fall because you're gonna. So, you know, if you skip the idea of thinking that you're beyond falling, then you're going to be really surprised when you do, and you're not going to be able to stand back up when it, you know, snaps your tailbone or bash your head on the side, you know. So, and the metaphorical fall is also going above and beyond like your own capacity. So I'm very realistic.
When did you start figuring that stuff out? What caused what were the points at which you kind of learned those kind of core things?
Um, I think the first time was, I was just playing around all alone when I was a kid down at the bottom of this. We always go to West Virginia, this big mountain, and I was like on my own, and I was messing around with this. It was like a tennis net, and it was like this rusty crank, and I like pushed this button, and it like went out and whacked me on the head, and I had to get like 28 stitches through my eye, and then I was like 4, maybe 4 years old, 5, and it just taught me like, like what, hey dude, don't touch that. It taught me what that meant. And then the other thing was like, you're like, holy shit. And then you have to climb up a hill to get to people to where they, can take you to the hospital, and then they couldn't numb it because it had all these chunks of metal and rust in it. So they had to pick it out before they had to pick all this rust and stuff out of my eye before they actually, numbed it. And then, I remember just being held down and just screaming at the top of my lungs. But I made it, and then it was awesome because everyone's like, dude, awesome scar. I still have it. You can see it cutting through my eye. And then I remember my dad, we were watching Terminator, and there was this moment where they went into the grocery store and made a pipe bomb. And then I learned how to make a bomb, and it was mixing some chemicals, and then I thought it was, and then I was like, okay, so if it was that cool because my dad was a Navy SEAL explosives guy, so he knew a lot about blowing shit up. And so I figured if, this little bottle with that was that awesome exploding, I'm going to go into the woods secretly and do that same bomb in a milk jug and in a gallon. So if like 2 ounces is awesome, what about 128 ounces? And so I did it, and I was maybe in like the 3rd grade, maybe 4th grade, and I learned about the true rule of nature, which is what we're learning about now, which is compounding interest, right? 1 makes 2 makes 4 makes 8. You know what I mean? It's not 1 makes 2 makes 3, and then 8 makes 16, 16 makes 32. So when you go from, if you think of the exponential growth from 1 and multiply that by 128 in the compounding interest world, you just made you didn't make a larger bomb. You made many, 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 many bombs. And so I just remember having to hightail it into a body of water and just dive into this creek, and I'm just like hiding as like all these little explosions are like flying all around me. And so then I just realized, oh yeah, don't skip steps, like just incremental steps, enjoy. And there's a lot of things, like motorcycles taught me a lot. Being beat up a lot taught me a lot. Like I remember punching a guy, telling a guy like, if he doesn't leave me alone, I'm gonna hit him in the face. And he goes and hit me, and he was older, and I punched him in the face, and he just kind of blinked and then commenced beating the shit out of me, and actually called some friends over and beat the hey, let's beat this kid up. And so you just learn to be nice after that. So I think it wasn't one thing, it was many things. Yeah. Yeah. I could go on for days on stories of what taught me how to go slow. Yeah.
Right.
I'm curious about Matt, let's see. Instead of asking I would want to use your work with your students, okay, kind of as a metaphor, a replacement for a talk. Okay. So, who do you want to reach with your teaching?
I want to reach anyone that has a skill that is wondering how to integrate it into the rest of their life. Because I think we're missing metaphor in our lives and nuance. So I think a lot of people can't see that the path to, like, it's like so many people do yoga and they're like, I didn't know it's not martial arts. Like, we're so compartmentalized. I don't think people understand that cooking is martial arts. Music is martial arts. Martial arts is art. Art is creativity. Creativity is born from a lack of resources. I want to meet anyone that thinks that there's a source of lack in this world, when actually the more shit you have, the more shit you have in your way. And I want to reach anyone that is like fighting for material abundance and not seeing that the more you loosen your body and get rid of your resistance and all the crap in your way, then the more power you create.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And so what do you want by the end of your work with them? What do you want them to do or decide?
I want them to know that they're allowed to mess with things, they're allowed to feel, and they're allowed to be, it's the old phrase, you bring yourself to enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
So many times when we do something, we look at the letter of the law. We look at, like, you know, if I say you become enlightened, we oftentimes will confuse that with, you know, you have a picture of that. Maybe it's a person in a robe or something, but really that is a soft moment of waking up and being okay with the situation you've woken up in, being okay with who you are. And so the idea is you're allowed to mess with things.
Mm-hmm.
You're allowed to change things for your own life. You know, if you look at martial arts, not everyone thinks it's all about the cage fighter, but martial arts is a way of observing nature, feeling stress, and using stress as a tool to integrate. And it's using stress as a way to heighten your consciousness. And it's a way of making conscious decisions under stress and creating health out of something even as extreme as war. So I think people need to know that your teacher is there to give you ideas, but once you learn things, you're allowed to mess with them and you're allowed to put them into your life, and to know that, you know, a stance is balance, and you need balance everywhere. Don't think that you only need balance when you're sitting in a martial arts room. Like see the fundamental element of what you're learning and how can you bring that into everything. Like, I really think it's funny how people go to a breathing class and then they keep going to a breathing class when they realize, like, once you learn how to be conscious of your breath, you do know you're breathing everywhere you go. Freaks me out that people can't, that people need a ceremony and a uniform and the only reason why there's a uniform, like the kimono and the gi that they wear in jiu-jitsu and judo and all that stuff, is because that was the clothes in Japan at the time. And the reason why it's white is because those were the cheapest color of fabrics that they brought in at the time. Everyone was wearing kimonos. If you look at the Kung Fu outfit, look at a marketplace in China in like 1890, everyone was wearing that. Like, it's called clothes. It's not this outfit. Like, we're so wrapped up in the superficial, you know, essence of it. It's like, so basically what I would like for people to do is to be able to go away knowing that once you own it, you can do anything you want with it. So, like, buy your balance, practice your balance, and know you're carrying your balance everywhere you're going. And you're allowed to mess with it. You're not dishonoring me by evolving. You know what I mean? Like, no great teacher would ever say, I taught you this thing, how dare you put it into your life?
So it's one thing you want people to decide is to own their own practice.
Own it. You're allowed to.
Yeah.
You know, like, buy a guitar and stop playing just Beatles songs. You know, you can write your own shit sometimes. You can jam with your friends. You can, it's like a dancer just, you know, it's like every time they just do like this one dance, and then next thing you know, like, they go to this other club and they only do their one, you know, it's like, no, it's kind of lame. Like, you're allowed to bring yourself to your art, you know. And the other thing that I want people to understand is go into struggle and go into, like, that quote, resistant environment, non-cooperative environment.
Yeah.
Go into it with a positive attitude. Like, know that that's when you're going to learn shit. Like, no one learns, like, there's a reason why people have channel surfed their way into mediocrity by going to summer camps over and over again and learning 10 different things in a summer and leaving not knowing a damn thing. You know, like, I've met 9-year-olds that have started and quit more shit than I will ever begin in my entire life. And everyone's like, well, they just want to. No, don't. Like, put them in a room with nothing to do and let them find themselves. But that takes a lot. That's hard. Like, we need people to be entertained because we're so busy. We don't want to be annoyed by your little unentertained ass. You know what I mean? So we don't have the patience for your lack of patience. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would really, you know, like to impart, you know, give that to people. Yeah.
And how would you describe the that concept of owning your own shit in this construct of you might think, but really, what do most people think is true, but really this is true.
Yeah, I would say you might think martial arts is about fighting, but really it's about building consciousness and relaxation and peace in times of non-cooperative times. And, you know, it's like martial arts took war and turned it into the most complete and greatest health practice of all time.
I think he has to talk.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, say more about the dichotomy of the healing arts and martial arts, like the fact that you know both makes you better at both.
Oh yeah. The metaphor is medicine is poison, right? So when you are so if I were to just put a scalpel in your hands and say, operate on this person now, go, you're going to kill him, right? And that's the beginning martial artist. You're learning these things, and at first you're just beating the shit out of stuff. Like first you're just going to actually hurt yourself, right? I put a scalpel in your hand, you're just like, you know, just cutting yourself. And then later you might learn how to cut someone else, and then soon you can learn how to save a life, right? And so it's like you're just learning this art of creating more and more and more consciousness under that stress. When you learn the healing arts, you're putting your hands on people, you're learning how to feel, you're learning how to actually enter into their frame, like pushing through their skin, through their muscles, into the bones, feeling the joints, and it helps for your wrestling, for your grappling, for your holds. And it teaches you that you can put your hands on someone without the intention of harming them or protecting yourself. You're actually giving to them, and at first, you know, the healing arts are you're going in there trying to fix a problem, but really you're going in there just trying to sort of bring their nervous system back down to a baseline to where the ecosystem can start repairing itself. And if you look at what's happening right now, that's why this is beautiful. A big virus sweeps across our world and it sat our little asses down. And now the ecosystem is starting to repair itself. The air is getting better. Everything is starting to get a little bit better. And that is, I mean, basically it's a fever, it's a massage, it's a sauna, it's a, you know, it's all these things. And so I wish we could see how systems, because our arrogance as humans think it's our responsibility to fix it, right? We try to solve problems with the minds that create them, right? And so that's like the healing art person, like you break your knee and they're just like, I must go in there. And it's like, if it's not so messed up, it can repair itself. Just get them back down to relaxed, maybe nudge them a little bit in one way, be a steward, right? And that's important. And the more hands you have on bodies, the better fighter you become, right? There's nothing weirder. Like when you work with masters, they're hitting you all the time because they don't care about hitting you. They're just there. They're just enjoying it. It's really scary to deal with a person with no intentions.
Right. Say more about that.
We can all feel everything, right? And especially when you're in a moment of like kind of heightened, when the adrenaline kicks in, you know, your senses are flying. And so you can always feel when someone wants to hit you, or you can always feel when someone wants to harm you, or even when someone wants to have sex with you. You know what I mean? We can all feel this stuff. There is intuition. And if we don't believe it, it's like I tell everyone, you know, if you sleep with someone every night, just right before you go to bed, just lean over and just be like, fuck you, you're ugly. And then just try to roll over and sleep. No, it's just going to be like, you know, and they're just going to be you're not going to be able to sleep with that energy. But if there's that side in the anger, there's also that in the positivity. And so you can actually bring in that positive energy into anything, right? Go into it like, you know, look at dogs. Like some dogs love to, you know, play rough, and some dogs get afraid of it. It's just opinions, right? And so we need to bring that playfulness into these things. Yeah. So.
I mean, you talk a lot about, because you do privates with Matt twice a month. And for you, just this being able to respond, it's created so much resilience in your life, just being able to respond to being hit.
Yeah.
He
used to hate it.
Control. I mean, talk about that.
Huh? What?
He used to hate it.
I know.
Oh, I still hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about this work that you've done together.
I'm better at it. But the biggest thing for me is this immediate kind of jettisoning of self-judgment for self-preservation.
Yeah.
Like if you get hit, like if I get hit or if I miss something,
yeah,
my first thing is, you fucked up. But if I'm in the middle of saying, I'm telling myself this story that I fucked up, you're hitting me again. So I have to practice stopping doing that.
Yeah,
and
that's nature.
That's like the biggest lesson for me.
Yeah, nature is, you're trying to go surfing. I always tell it's like, because all these energies are surfing. And when you don't try to tell the wave which way to go, you just get on the wave and then you can adjust yourself on the wave. But you have to get up past the shore break first, right? And when you get hit by one, another one's coming and another one's coming. You don't have to like stand up and judge it. You know, people don't realize psychopaths and terrorists and, you know, governments, they use our egos and moral high ground and self-judgments against us all the time, right? The easiest way to kick someone's ass is let them nick you one good time, and when they're basking in the glory, beat them up, right? And that's really important to understand. And you know, serial rapists would always talk about that. You just go up to a white girl and then ask her to get in the car, and if she says no, just be like, you're just like all the other white girls, and she'll be like, and her moral high ground will be like, I don't like being called racist, and then that's how they get 80% of them in their car. We have to realize that our egos and our self-judgments is one of our worst tools. Like, you have to be able to like know when that thing comes out. Because if you have a idea of bad or good or right or wrong about getting hit, there's 10 more coming right after that. Like, it's all I want. And then, you know, if you look at self-defense environments where, you know, if I want to fight you and you're walking away, like the person that gets beat up is the person that needs to turn around and validate their feelings now of letting you know that you've done them wrong and you're bad. And then in that time, my friend's going to kick the shit out of you. So we have to just get in there and not judge. And that's the fun part. It's like, that's like saying, like when you're on the beach and you're going out and a wave hits you, you're like, oh, man, that wave just totally knew my name and chose me. And, you know, it's like our arrogance thinks the wave keeps hitting us and the wind keeps blowing my hair. The wind is blowing my hair. Right. And that's our mindset now. But martial arts should teach you. Huh?
What do you have to say about self-judgment, the self-judgment that comes up when you're practicing and learning something?
That self-judgment is a really good tool, but all our tools need to know its place, right? I mean, look at our technology. This technology is helping us. Like, social media is a great tool. It is not, but it needs to know its place. Because if it doesn't know its place, it's going to turn us into narcissistic weirdos, right? But now it can help us communicate. It started a revolution in Egypt, right? Or was it? Yeah, Egypt. It's a great tool, but when it's everything to you, it's not good. So then it becomes a crutch, right? So I think self-judgment is one of those things where you need to be like, okay, I can do better, right? But you don't have to be like, I'm so stupid. You know, it's like you don't have to just like
I feel like it's, yeah, I was thinking about like the people that we work with, or just the whole act of getting on stage or getting in front of people and sucking for a while, or, you know, doing it in public. And it can be a tendency. There's a difference between saying, you know, oh, well, that didn't go well. There's that didn't go well. All right. Okay. Yay. You know, so what can I learn from that? And I'm going to see that as a lesson. I'm going to get excited about getting better. That's the step on the way to getting better. Or saying, well, that sucked. I must not be meant for this. I must not be good at this. And therefore I'm just going to stop. Well, so I can stay safe.
Yeah, that's the classic improv thing. It's like, yay, we fucked up. It's like, then you can move on. Because especially if you're up in front of an audience and you fuck up, and then you start judging yourself internally or externally, that's just going to be awkward for everybody.
You're done.
Because you did some improv work, right?
Yeah.
That was a real challenge for you. That was a challenge. Matt Lucas's challenge.
I was done.
Talk about that.
So hard. The first day that I came back, I was staying with my friend, and she was just like, I've never seen you. I mean, I was like shaking, shaking in fear. And all I said was, okay, tomorrow, no matter what the exercise is, I'm just going to be the first person up. Like, because it's frightening. You judge the hell out of yourself, but you just have to know that it's just your own self-judgment. Who cares? You know, it's like you just have to. It's like your 80-year-old racist neighbor. You know, they're gonna say a bunch of stupid shit. But you're like, what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? What are you really gonna do? Like, you just say weird stuff, and you're irrelevant. I'll help you. You know, carry it. I'll help you take in your garbage cans, and you're gonna say a bunch of stupid crap. But other than that, like, you know, and every now and then you might teach me to do something. So, you know, you might have something to say. But I think giving it too much power, there's always a way you can ride that energy. And so I mean, I honestly just, the next day I went in and I was like, I'm just going to volunteer. Right. I'm either first up or second up. And then after about 3 days, I started getting a bit more comfortable. But it was, oh my God.
You just threw yourself in.
What's the most important thing you took from that, or what's the most relevant thing you took from that? Did you integrate that into your work?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just like fighting. I need to go into it not wanting to hit you, and you need to go onto stage not wanting to be funny, not wanting to be. You just need to just go there and feel and just let it happen, as opposed to, you know, the person. You can see it now. Like if you guys watch people doing their first videos, they try to be wacky and they try to be, you know what I mean? They try to be funny, and it's like the most awkward shit ever. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to do that. So you just want to go in, be patient, listen, feel, and be patient.
Yeah, that's another good analogy about I think speaking to an audience is the whole feeling thing. Can you talk about when you're doing, especially when you're doing like BJJ, especially like you're like feeling, you're actually, because you're really attached to the other person, and so you're feeling what you're feeling. You're not so much thinking about what they're going to do, but can you talk about
what's
like,
BJJ?
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Brazilian,
okay.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that sort of feeling idea?
Yeah, that's surfing, right? I mean, just like when I say martial arts, people think, you know, fighting. When I say feel, we either think emotion or we think hands, right? Like I touch things with my hands, right? It's like if I say taste, people think mouth. Rarely do they think, you know, you're either into Depeche Mode or The Cure, right? So what kind of, you know, there's other types of taste. Now, when you are feeling as a martial artist, there's feeling like their energy. Like when I grab onto you, I can feel you either get tense, or I can feel you get loose, or I can feel, you know, I can feel you wanting to quit. I can feel, there's a million things I can feel. So when you're first doing jiu-jitsu, that's why when we do it, I don't really teach submissions, because you need to learn how to feel where I'm going, right? It's the wave. Like the wave is pushing you one way, so don't push it the other way. You can use that. And I think if we can get in there, now this is why I teach people like you, and I teach, you know, people that aren't going into fighting, because we're here to learn how to feel and how to be more adaptable. We're not here to learn how to just like kick someone's ass. Like that's only going to get you thrown in jail. You know, it's like, that's not going to.
Yeah, I'm not interested in that.
That's not us. We are here to be able to go, okay, this person is going this way. I'm going to go with them, and I'll actually meet them there, and I can actually be in a position of advantage. That's the part of it. And how to feel with your body, and how to actually know that, like, I can feel with my foot, I can feel with my knee, I can feel with my hips, you know, and if I know how to put my awareness, and, you know, this is why children should wrestle or do jiu-jitsu, because from the top of their head all the way down to the tip of their toes, they get awareness. And so many times our culture kind of removes us from that awareness. Like, we don't have it. We don't need it. Why do you need it? Like, there's no reason. Like, there's no reason to tune into your environment if you work in a city, if you live in a city. You have to tune out more information per second than someone would, like, living, you know, up in the mountains in West Virginia in like the 70s. Like, there's more stimulus happening to you every second right now that you have to tune out just to get this conversation going. So we don't tune in. So jiu-jitsu, martial arts, like, you know, Wing Chun, sticky hands, all that stuff is sort of, you tuning in to an environment with something more than just, you know, your hands or. You know.
Yeah, and I really like the idea that you have to feel without reactivity, because
just go with it.
You but it's really hard to untrain yourself from your kind of animal instinct to tense up or freak out, or like you're it's crazy to kind of roll with you, because you're so non-reactive.
Yeah, I don't care about
like
anything.
I feel myself, like when I feel myself starting to get choked out or pressed too much, I just totally fucking panic. And you're kind of relaxed.
Yeah.
And that's my goal, is to find that relaxation.
Yep.
You know? Yeah.
One of the big lessons in that was there's this stupid woman that kept killing people in drunk driving accidents in Pensacola.
Yeah.
And there's your metaphor. Drunk people survive car crashes.
Oh, right.
And
yeah.
it's because they're not tensed up. They're just passed out at the wheel, and they're just, you know, hitting the other person, you know, bracing themselves, and that person's going to snap their own neck. So I think
the process of training yourself to be non-reactive, like one of the things we do is that kind of slow contact, where you kind of actually make contact, but it's so you can just get used to a fist coming at your face and actually touching you.
Yeah.
That's but that takes so fucking long.
Yeah, it takes long. And depending on what your life is, I mean, you know, some people, I mean, I've had students that, I mean, I would hold a pad up in front of their head, like in front of them to hit it, and they would just start crying because they associate, because to them punching is just like, is an act of hate, right?
Right.
Wow.
And to me, punching is what you do with the people that you love, and punching is how you become strong, and punching is how you get together with your friends and find joy, and like that's what punching is to me. So we have to understand that, you know, you guys teach people how to tell story, and so what you may think is, you know, like what you may think is you might think that martial arts is violent, but what you don't know is actually not knowing violence is the key to becoming a violent, crazy person. Like
right.
ignoring these things is how you get caught with your pants down, and then how you become reactionary, and next thing you know, you're fighting over toilet paper, right? So
well, and then receiving impact is actually healthy.
Oh,
like,
it's there's what you may know, you know, it's like I try to ask people to name anything that doesn't get stronger with resistance.
Right.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Try to find anything that doesn't get stronger when you bend it a little bit, when you push it a little bit. And then hopefully we can build a community around us that are doing it we push each other. That was like the idea of, the translation is competition is for self-discovery. And, you know, this is where capitalism fucks up, right? Where now we're doing it in order to, you know, become the biggest, baddest, and strongest, which we all want to do that. But if competition isn't making you cultivate yourself more, like that's why Book of Five Rings, why Musashi stopped fighting to the death, because he realized no one was making him push himself beyond himself. They were just trying to beat him. So they were just fighting with ego. They weren't fighting to cultivate themselves. So he stopped and became more of a pacifist, right? And so are we becoming capitalists to just feed our egos to show how much money we got? Or are we entering into this competition to discover more about ourselves and promote progress and all the, you know, because capitalism at first was like, we need you guys all kind of working to where we can push forward and we can challenge each other. But then when it comes down to, okay, now this person became the biggest, baddest, strongest, and now they're just gouging everyone. You know, that's why we had to wipe out monopolies, right? So that's the same thing with power, with your body, with your mind, all that stuff. If you're competing just to get another trophy or to get more money, you're kind of missing the point, you know?
Well, yeah, bringing it back to, you know, public speaking, that's a really good way to practice, is just you know, take littler steps, you know. First thing shouldn't be a TED stage talk. It's It's an open mic for like a couple months. You go every week and you just tell a story.
Yeah. How do you guys tell people like what would you tell someone like, okay, you've never done this public speaking. What do you do? Like tell them to go to an open mic and try to inspire people?
I mean, I would say just, first of all, practice on your own, you know, then practice with friends. And then, yeah, go do something like that. Do something that's like really low stakes. Yeah. Nobody's going to see it. Nobody's going to listen to it. But like you said, you know, just practice getting hit, practice feeling awkward, practice not knowing what you're doing, but do it anyway. Yeah.
You know, when I was working on all this stuff, like what happened to me when I was trying to do all these videos, I mean, Matt has seen me through all of this crap. I originally tried to do something that was like hours long.
Oh yeah, it was really complex. Yeah.
And then I was like
angles and all that. Yeah.
And then I don't even know how to turn it on. I don't even know how to get the file onto my. It's done. It's just sitting on a hard drive. I finally learned how to get. So I'm starting to put things out on that. But so then I was like, okay, never mind. I'm just going to start doing things with one camera, and I'm going to start at 15 seconds. So instead of 15 hours worth of footage, I'm going to do 15 seconds. And then so I started with 15 seconds and then I started with 30 seconds and then I would edit it down to 15 seconds. And I just started, and then I made it a point to always put it out. Just always put it out. And that's what social media was for me, was putting it out, practicing, doing the reps. And then it moved up to a minute, and then now I can do, you know, multiple things, but it was that first challenge was like, can I put it out? And the level of fear when I hit that send button is like, and this is a thing that people, you may think like, you know, like when I have a very positive attitude towards fear, but you know, my favorite story on how chicken shit I am is this. I was going broke. This company owed me like 20 grand and they were late on that payment. So I knew my bank account was super low. And then I finally got this check, right? So I'm sitting on top of like 20 grand now. And I was so afraid of looking at my bank account. I held on to a check for $20,000 because I was afraid to see that I didn't have money.
For how long?
About a week. It took me a week to get the courage to look at the fact that I don't have money and I have so little money, I'm afraid to give myself money. That's how scared I am. And the idea is I'm not surprised by my fear and I don't judge my fear. I just know that's my nature. And that's why I've learned to fight. That's why I've learned to communicate. And that's why I've learned the skills to, at least like when I am afraid, I know, okay, tap into these fundamental skills and just do it. And
what was your fear? The fear of hitting send, was it on like the first of your 15-second?
Oh, it's all of them. I couldn't sleep last night because I finished this big product and I was like, I had to like do about it. I finished it about 9:30 and I did Qigong until 2:30 in the morning to bring my nervous system down. No, like it's
before hitting send or after?
I still haven't hit send. I just finished it and now it's all loading. It's petrifying. There's a reason why people give their stuff over to other people. There's a reason why you want to just give your shit over to someone else and you want to trust them and then let them do it. And then after that, then I'm going to have to tell people that this exists. And that sucks. Huh?
It doesn't stop.
No, it never stops.
You have to keep doing it. Yeah.
See, I'm going to keep on bringing up this story with us.
Yeah.
Our fear.
Like it's so easy for me to like tell people about you guys and anyone else, but when you're telling someone about yourself, your self-judgment shows up and be like, I'm not important enough. I'm not enough. I'm not this. I shouldn't be doing this. That's a douchebag move, you know? And then therefore, but then I look at people that are successful and they don't give into that. And so I like the relentless when you hit send. Like that's why I automate months at a time because it just starts happening and I just I'm like, you know, it just freaks me out that like I just sent 30 emails and I only had to hit send one time, but like, remember, like, but I'll be like, oh shit, I just emailed myself. Like I'll just like,
Yeah,
it's crazy. But yeah, that's
Seth Godin has a little post, you know, his little daily morsel
okay. Yeah.
That I really like. I don't have in front of me right now, but that I really like. And I'm speaking to myself right now too. But he says, you know, that this like, I'm an imposter. You're an imposter. Like, we're all imposters. He's like, it's highly likely that you are not the most qualified person to be doing what you're doing right now.
Except in this case.
Except in that case. For the, well, you know, but to say, you know, I'm not the most qualified person, therefore I shouldn't. This worrying about being an imposter keeps us from doing work that matters.
Well, and also when I was hiring people to help me with my website and everything, I went through 4 companies and I went through some of the best, and I was like, you guys aren't that good. Like what I learned was this designer was really just in charge of making the orange button on the blank, you know, and this guy was really good at this. And I just wasn't impressed with anyone. And so I was like, screw it. I'm just going to learn as much as I can to where at least I can identify what I want to communicate to these people as opposed to letting them run it, because they would try to tap into my voice or do all this other stuff. And I have too weird of a story for you to figure out what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't, you know, it's like most people aren't going to think that I learned how to not skip steps by building a fucking bomb when I was 9. You know what I mean? Like no one's going to tap into that guy. And so therefore, especially if you're thinking from a corporate model, trying to, you know, because I work with a lot of people in the corporate world, and that's a big part of it is I don't speak their language and I don't care about their language. What I care about is their, you know, understanding stress, and stress is stress is stress. Like even good stress is stress, right? I had a sick dad and we'd say, don't come over and say hi to him. It stresses him out. They'd be like, but I love him. I don't care. It's stressful. Leave him alone. You know, because he wants to take care of you. So you just got to make sure that he hasn't seen a lot of people that day. You just want to know that stress is stress. Don't judge it, you know. And I think that's a really important thing. Yeah. Yeah. I learned so much on this one, guys. Holy crap. All right, so I'm gonna edit this thing up, and then what I would love for you guys to do is send me some links to you guys, and I'm gonna cut it up and put it up into multiple pieces. And actually, I mean, you know, just for us, I mean, this is like, yeah, you guys, inspired me to do a bunch of cool stuff right now. I have any takeaways or anything you guys want to tell people?
I kind of feel like there's a bunch of this we could just put on. I could edit and make our podcast.
No, that's what I mean. I'll send it over to you. Yeah.
Yeah, those are really great.
Yeah. I mean, and this is the thing. Like, just the long form, we get to like literally hear what's on your mind. Like, there's no the intention starts going away. I always say it's the road trip. You know, we're like, hey, and the next thing you know, you like exhaust all your CDs and. Next thing you know, you just kind of just start, hey, so like the other thing that I like to tell people, and this is what, like, for example, like, you know, you've made a bunch of graphics for me. My logo, I hired a buddy of mine who was a tattoo artist, you know, and that's, I found artists that I believe in. Like, you could always, you know, get together with a friend. If someone has something to trade, you know, you could always find a friend that has, you know, go out. Like for example, I have a friend, like a lot of the pictures that I use, I have a friend that was like, let's go on a walk and I'll, you know, let's take some pictures. And so it's like, you just go on a walk and you take pictures, and I'll think about what I want to write. But you have to buy a camera. And the thing is how do you develop the discipline to say, I want to go to wine country or I want to go snowboarding, but I think I would rather invest in an asset that could help me create more. Right.
Right.
You know, and that's kind of where my mind always goes, but that's my joy. That's my snowboarding. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't care about going up on a mountain and you know, doing any of that. I care about creating things. So I think as far as all the assets that you use, what are some of your favorites? Like your Photoshop, but what else do you guys use?
I mean, me for graphic design, I mean, I basically use Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign for anything in print.
Okay.
And Keynote and PowerPoint for presentations.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's tough if you. I really am a believer. I mean, I'm an artist. I'm a photographer. I'm an illustrator.
Yeah.
I really, it's really hard for artists to make money.
Yeah.
With their art.
Yeah. We don't care about art. It's everywhere now.
Yeah, and Google makes it incredibly easy just to grab any image and throw it up and use it. And I actually think it's not cool. At the very least, give credit. Like if you're going to use Unsplash, use their name because that's why they're doing it. They're doing it for the exposure, which is there's a lot of that that's not cool.
Yep.
And is a disservice to artists in general. I mean, I pay for a subscription to Shutterstock.
Okay.
And all those have been paid for and licensed, and that's what I use. And when I use an image, my client also, so I download it and my client downloads it. So that artist gets paid. Well, Shutterstock gets paid twice, but that artist was paid by Shutterstock to have their stuff on. So, that's an advantage to being a specialist is that I have that kind of service.
Yeah.
But in terms of, I mean, the best thing is to have original photography. If you have somebody you know or do your own, that's great. Stock is a whole thing. Stock is really interesting because most stock looks like stock.
Yep.
And it's actually kind of an art to actually find stuff that looks more natural.
Yeah. You could do a blog post on that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and also I think there needs to be resources around on you know, photographers that are willing to like, hey, let me pay $50 and let's go. You know, I wrote this. What happens is we're reacting right now, and so it's like people just like, I got to put something up now, so we don't have time, right?
Right.
And that's why I like batching things to then I can be a little bit more thoughtful. It's like, okay, so this is going to be going over the next like year. So let me put together some graphics. And I mean, every day I wake up and I try to learn something, right? Because I don't wake up and work out because I work out every day all day. So I wake up and do something. I learn something. That's my thing. And so I take all these little classes, or I'll take a walk and take pictures or something like that.
How much online teaching you've been doing?
Not too much. I mean, I have like 3-4 clients now. People are starting to ask for more. But the way that I do it is you buy the course, and then I check in with you, and man, people are learning like crazy. Because I mean, when you're just watching me on a screen, like, you know, I'm trying to demo with you and look at you, it's not. Man, I don't like that.
I don't know. The Qigong thing we did was great. That was awesome.
But see, that's I can face you, right? But like when it gets into like the yoga and stuff, like head down, ass up kind of stuff, I'm not gonna like look through my legs and see if, you know, it's like, it's just. It's a challenge. It's a great exercise in communication, but I'm getting a lot of clients in that. But really, what I'm focusing on right now is, I think the service that I can provide is I bring out a side of people that takes their fear away. And I think more important now than anything is we need to start basking in the beauty that is creativity, which is you have a problem to solve and you are lacking resources to solve it. So you have to get creative. And I think that's what the talks are having. And then I also think like knowing that most people don't know people like you exist. A lot of people don't know that there are teams of people people think someone walks on stage, does a TED Talk, and they instantly know. It's a pop formula, just like when you listen to a song, there's a formula to it. And when you watch a TED Talk, if you know anything about performance, you can see the formula happening. And they don't know that there are coaches helping them.
It's really rare for somebody to not only be good at what their expertise is, but be good at talking about it.
Yep.
Or telling a story about it. That those people are kind of few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
So.
No, I mean that's I mean it's magic. I mean, hearing what you guys do, and I don't know, it's really fun for me because I'm always trying to learn how to do better. I'm lucky that I have to edit my own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'm just like, oh man, dude, really?
Yeah.
You know, talk about self-judgment.
That's the next thing I need to learn is to edit my own stuff. Yeah.
And be okay
I mean,
huh?
In terms of like video and audio is what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I personally, like, I learned this, one of my buddies, you know, that guy in the band Soul Coughing, I remember talking to him about this one great album, and he was like, there's like 49 songs, and we trimmed it down to like 13. And then I was like, oh yeah, you just have to throw stuff away. And therefore I will just come up with an idea and I'll try to communicate it, and then I'll throw it away. I'll just try to communicate it and I'll watch it and I'll be like, all right, I need to get quicker, or I need to elaborate on that, or I need to, you know, and I'm just trying to watch it. And I do the same thing as when I would make a record. I was like, okay, I'm scanning through the channels on the radio and this song is on. Do I stay or do I go? That's what I'm always doing. And yeah, it's most of the time with my music. I've just now became a fan of my music, but like back then I always so I had to hand it off to somebody that was a fan of my music, and they would finish it for me. But yeah. Yeah, this is fun. What else? I could talk. Apparently, I could talk to you guys forever. I love it.
I know.
How long have we been on?
This.
I don't know.
We've been this like it's almost 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
Shut up.
That's what happens when you talk about shit you enjoy.
Yeah, I love talking to Matt. I miss talking to Matt.
I know. I miss you guys.
You and me, like fucking before and after class, we talk like 4 or 5 days a week usually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I miss that.
Yeah, and the thing is people don't realize how interesting people are that are interested in people. Like, because you guys just sit back and just listen, and you're just like, oh, and then you literally help them hash it out. So you have to go learn random things.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when you talk to actors, you know, it's like, it's the idea of, you know, when you watch Gilligan's Island, and like Ginger always had some weird skill to solve the problem because she like played, you know.
Yeah.
She's always like, well, I did this movie where we had to, you know, and so she always like, you know, I mean, it's funny. People right now they don't know that they really want to know what you guys like. You guys have such a great business model to help people put together. Like, I was talking to someone the other day, and like what you're saying with the background, like, you know, they were like, you know, I want to do some streaming. And I go, hey, when you stream, make your bed. You know, like, make your bed and put something in the back. You know, it's like, don't. You know what I mean? It's just like, just show me that you took 2 moves. What are 2 moves you can show me that this isn't a reaction out of desperation, right? It's like, you're not just come running out with your pants down just being, I need money. You know, and it's like, you just like, don't do that. You need to show me that you're thoughtful. Like, if you want me to give you money, give me intention, right? And we're going to be fine. But don't just like stand there and be like, I have this gift to share with you. Now give me money. Like, no, make me want it. You know, like, don't just tell me that what you're giving me is valuable. Like, I'm the consumer, man. I get to decide.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like giving me food without salt. You know, I might pay for it and then I eat it and I'm like, no, I want my money back. Like, you know, it's like, you need to like focus on the details.
Make your content salty.
Yeah,
Season your content.
Yeah, and that's how you. There's where your self-judgment should come in. It's like, you know, when someone's building a temple, their ego is involved. You know, like, they're using their ego. Rarely are temples like these gross places. You know what I mean? They're usually well designed. There's a lot of love in them, and they're usually pretty beautiful. So, like, if you want to give a gift, like, then throw your ego into giving a good gift. You know, I don't think people, like, we think ego is this thing that we should get rid of, as opposed to use it to be like, no, I want to make myself as strong and capable as possible, and I want to give the best gift I can. And I hopefully we'll once we're done negotiating with nature.
That'll never end.
Yeah, watch.
When we're done with this one, there's the next one. When we're done with that, there's climate change.
Yeah.
Then there's hurricane season. Then there's fire season. It's like,
yeah. But if you really think about it, like, this is the remedy to climate change. We're gonna you know, at least 1 million people are gonna learn that they don't have to commute.
We got to see what happened. Like, everybody's saying, you know, the climate change thing needs to be like the war effort in World War II, and everybody needs to get on board, and everybody needs to do the same thing and toe the line. It's like, okay, so we just got to see what happens when we do that.
Yeah.
The question is, do you really want, you know, that gets back to your thing about, you know, do you really want change? Because we can keep doing this, or we can go back to status quo and get what we always got. So
talk about the 50s, the flu.
Oh yeah, did you know that in 1957 there was a flu pandemic that started in Asia? It was called the Asian flu. It killed over 1 million people worldwide and over 200,000 people in the United States.
Oh wow.
1957. Nobody remembers it.
Because we were too busy like listening to Beach Boys songs.
I don't know. I'm just saying, it's like, you got to wonder. Someone was saying, it's like, if you think this is going to like be like world changing, maybe not, you know, in 10 years, people will go like, what was that? Yeah, whatever.
That's my favorite joke, right? I tell you, it's like the guy that's, you know, I told you this joke, Allison.
I don't know, maybe.
Okay. This is the ultimate metaphor for us as people. Think of, okay, this guy looking for parking, religious guy, or he wasn't religious, but then he's just like, he just starts praying to God. He's been looking for parking. He's going for a job, and he's just like, please, God, I'll just do anything. I just want a parking place. I'm running late. I'll do anything. And then right when he starts praying, a parking place starts opening up. And he goes, oh, never mind, God, there's one right there. And that's it. That's us. Like, we're like, oh my God, I'm gonna change. I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do this. But you know what? I just want to, I just want cake. You know what I mean? That's what we do. And so this is us bargaining.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we bargain and we go back to business as usual, and then it beats us senseless. Because I really do think this is, you know, someone telling us, like, stop solving problems with the minds that create them.
Yep.
And start humbling yourself. Start seeing that we are looking at things and making things way too important, and we're forgetting that, you know, we're the only species on the planet that makes unusable waste. That's it. That's what separates us from animals. People think it's art and compassion. Nope. I've seen, you know, there's the little spiders that do things and little fish that make art, and there's all kinds of animals that make somewhat of an art. But we're the only animal that makes unusable waste. That's what separates us from the rest of the animal kingdom. And if we don't acknowledge that, and we don't just say, okay, we make unusable waste, and if we don't understand how to utilize that waste, then we're going to harm ourselves. You know, the air and everything else is fine. And, you know, so I just hope we can see that. And if not, maybe the world will get another fever, and then another fever, and, you know, and then it's time to put our money where our mouth is. Like, we don't need to destroy the middle class and destroy people's ability to feed themselves and clothe themselves in order to solve this. The idea is we don't need to solve it. We need to just start changing our habits in a direction, right? So hopefully we can do that. Because it's just solving disease. Like, you have to change your habits.
Yeah, totally.
You know,
totally. And you have to have, the biggest thing is the collective will to do it. I mean, now we're all forced to do the same thing.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that really matters for big changes, is actually everybody agreeing that we're going to help each other out.
Yep. And hopefully one day we can do it. You know, this is what I was talking about with martial arts. Like, martial arts is the act of, like, getting to your most powerful place from a place of relaxation, right? And not needing an extreme circumstance to make yourself powerful, right? But the problem is we fall into these situations to where the only thing that drives people is fear, right? Like, we're not going to come together until, you know, it's like that. It's the joke. No bar ever cleared out because someone ran in saying 2 people are getting along in the parking lot. Right. And if we know that,
awesome.
then we're not going to, then we need to see that this is our nature. And craving and aversion is the way we've been driven for, we know this, you know, if the tits don't sell it, the fear will, right? So we just have to get people aware of that. And everyone says they know, but it's whether they integrate it or not.
So that's the question. So how do you get people to cooperate out of altruism as opposed to fear? On a big scale.
Yep. I don't know. It's like, not only do I not know, but I do know that one way is to appreciate people and to focus on what they can contribute. So we have a thing, like I said, we think Oprah is important and we don't think the garbage collector is important. But right now, nature is saying otherwise.
Right. Yeah.
Like there are essential people. And I think we need to tune into that. I think we need to be aware of what is important.
Right.
Entertainers are important, but we realize, like, you know, I mean, kind of your buddies are fun too. You know, I mean, it's like, it doesn't all have to be, you know, Meryl Streep up in here breaking our hearts. You know, I mean,
and to that point, I think the other thing about creating movement is for individuals to help their immediate communities, like actually do something in your immediate community. And so if we're all realizing that the real important people are, you know, people who pick up the garbage and check you out at the grocery store and restaurant workers, it's like when all this sort of gets back to normal, actually, each of us in our communities can actually do something for those people as we can right now and continuing. When things go back to normal, we can continue to help those people or honor those people or support those people. That's what we can do. We don't need to. And
I also would hope that people want to be useful and people want to be of service. And yeah, we can call whoever we want heroes and we can do whatever we want to, like, say thanks.
Yeah, but they'd rather have $20 an hour.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I've talked to you about this. It's like in the fight for equality, the one place where we missed in the equality world is we didn't have equal appreciation over people's skills. Like, again, we started thinking that the CEO is this valuable thing and the janitor isn't, you know what I mean? But, like, if they don't take out the trash and they don't unclog the toilet, like, everything sucks.
Totally.
And we're standing there talking about, but these people are skilled. It's like, yeah, nurses and teachers, very skilled. We don't appreciate teachers. We literally think a salesperson is more important than a teacher. And so, yeah, I hope you do lose your job for a little while and, like, check in. And I hope you do lose your job to where you have to sit there and teach your kid for a good 6 months. Like, you teach your kid then.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you do it. And know that, like, that's how, you know, this is a beautiful leveler. All boats rise with the tide, you know? And we've figured out a way to not allow that. And so, yeah, it's like, hopefully we can get wisdom of it. But yeah, if it's business as usual, cool. Then repeat the cycle. Was it the monkey mantras? If I change anything, it'll change everything. So don't change. And we just change the words that we use, right? One day it used to be this, and now it's this, and now it's this. You know, it's like, look at, you know, all of our diet habits and all this crap. So, yeah, hopefully we get a little wisdom out of this. They say black eye is just class notes. You know, don't judge it.
Yeah, well, I'm just hoping it shifts on a more societal level.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, what paralyzes people?
The only way that happens is if we actually do small things every day.
Yeah. This is what paralyzes people. Like, we don't define power. And to me, power is just the ability to change your environment. And we think, oh my God, I have this problem. I feel powerless because I can't stop this problem. But what you learn in fighting is the cage locked. Like, and you're not just like instantly first move, win. You just slowly start ticking away. It's what you guys do with people. It's not like, hey, you know, we're Matt and Allison, and cool, let's, the first draft, here you go, there you go, now go break some hearts, you're the greatest. You know, it's like, no, it's like, it's just one thing at a time, and you slowly, you put your toe in the water, and, you know, you learn what's going on, and you just keep ticking away at it. But you have a goal, you have a north. And I don't think we've defined our north. Our north is just like, solve problem, world peace. Like, we don't know what that means.
That's part of the problem.
Yeah, that's the problem, is we don't sit down and we don't just and accept the fact that what is peaceful to you might not be peaceful to me. Like, I've learned that I like wrestling with people. And that might not be peaceful for a lot of people. And for me to think that that's your place of peace, right, is me being ignorant and inconsiderate to you. So I need to welcome you into it. With courtesy and with kindness and all these other things. And if you don't like it, I don't take it personally, because I also don't want to ever go wine tasting.
Yeah, and it also comes down to like your practice, like breaking it down into its smallest doable parts.
Yeah.
And everybody does what they're capable of doing until they're able to level up.
Yes, it's the handstand. Everyone wants to do a handstand, but no one wants to. But the amount of people that can't do 5 push-ups that want to do a handstand is staggering. Like, just literally, like, see how many people will go to a handstand class, right? Handstand workshop, one weekend. They think they're going to learn a handstand in a weekend, and then they instantly start doing push-ups. And, like, on the Friday, it's from Friday to Sunday, and they're going to learn handstands by Sunday. And they try to do those push-ups on Friday, and they can't. And they think they're going to knock that handstand out by it. Nope. It's like, you're not thinking. You're not humble enough to the process of nature. You're not humble. There's no humility. There's no patience. Yeah. Last question. What's the picture behind you? Is that you, Allison?
Oh, no, this is a picture by our client, Lisa, one of our clients, Lisa Christine. She did an amazing TED Talk about modern day slavery. You can find on TED.com.
Oh, cool. And on our site.
And on our site. But she went to, is this in Peru, I think?
In Ecuador.
It's in Ecuador. And this is a man in the Achuar tribe, which is one of the few communities there that is, they're kind of like rainforest protector kind of people.
It's one of the last remaining groups of people where they live pretty much as they always have. Yeah. You know, really practically untouched.
Wow.
And so she had to, you know, to even get to this area, she had, I'll send you a closer photo of this man, but she, you know, she was brought, you know, had to trek for hours with guides, didn't speak the language. And that's one thing that Lisa's really able to do, is just connect with people all over the world on a human level.
Yeah.
Like often before, like if she goes into a tribe or a community, she'll spend a couple of days before she even starts capturing images, maybe meeting with the village elders, meeting with everybody to kind of make sure that they have similar intentions to her work. And so this guy is a pretty amazing guy. I mean, he's got this necklace that's made from an anaconda snake. His headdress has the feathers from 22 different birds. Jesus. So this is Lisa's a really special human. I mean, she's one of the people where it, you know, sometimes friends become clients, and she's a client who's become a friend, which is really special.
And when the world goes to shit, these are the guys who know how to live.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go work out. It's finally, we have a sunny day. I'm going on the roof.
Exercise.
All right,
this
guys.
Has been so special and instructive.
Yeah. Dude, that was awesome. And
hope you enjoyed that. I learned a lot on this one. I'm super grateful that I was able to actually be taken through that process. Share this work with your friends. And hopefully we can turn this quarantine into something where we come out a little bit more insightful. The story of Kung Fu was a guy goes into a cave for 9 years and comes out pretty badass. So we're going to be in that cave for a little bit. So I hope we can at least become a little bit more introspective and a little bit more connected with ourselves and the stories that we're here to tell. Give it as a gift. All right, share this work, tell your friends, totalbswellness.com. Seek, show up, and practice, or it's all BS.